Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start. TV 79.
We're on the record?
We're on the record.
Sure.
Welcome. Tonight is, what's tonight? Mischief Night. It's the 30th. 30th. It's the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Tonight's a special meeting. It was not on the agenda, so we did a special meeting agenda tonight. It's 8 o'clock in Town Hall. It's a public hearing, and that's it. We have a couple of general meeting items at the end, but that's really not anything special. Our first item on the agenda is the Nature Center. You want to read it to us,
Yes,
Jen?
I would. Continuation of public hearing regarding amendment to special permit application number 79D, Darien Nature Center, Town of Darien, 120 Brookside Road. Proposal to amend special permit application 79D to permit an increase in the use of the Darien Nature Center and the number of participants, visitors for various program uses and activities, as well as for periodic special events with restrictions on use. The subject property, inclusive of Cherry Lawn Park, is located on the east side of Brookside Road, opposite its intersection with Overbrook Lane, and is shown in Assessor's Map number 11 as lot number 31 in the R1 zone.
Okay. The Nature Center has been operating at Cherry Lawn Park for years. Lynn Hamlin was there years ago when they rebuilt it. Jeremy, you want to take us out, tell us why we're here?
Sure. In 2000, Lynn Hamlin, Gil Lefferts put together a proposal for the new Nature Center building and a special permit for the associated uses within Cherry Lawn Park. You have a copy of those uses, which were approved back in 2000 by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Tonight, Layla Wetmore, the Executive Director of the Nature Center, and Rachel Zargami, the Board President, are here to talk about a proposal to modify the previously approved uses, special events for the Nature Center. You have in your packets the proposal, a spreadsheet put together by Layla. She's also handed Fred and I something to give out to you tonight that she'll walk through with you about the various events that were approved in 2000 and their proposal to modify them going forward.
Okay, who wants to start from the applicant? Please state your name for the record.
Sure. I'm Leela Wetmore, and I am the director of the Nature Center, and I'm also a resident of Darien.
I'm Rachel Zargami, a resident of Darien, raised here too, also the board president of the Nature Center.
Fantastic.
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
Zarghami.
Thank you.
Can we use that for?
You can put that up when you're ready, but you may not want to pull up Pam Geary's smiling face. So you told you.
Okay.
But when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you for describing the situation, Jeremy. The updates that we seek tonight reflect the growth of our programs over the last 20 years. However, we have been operating at these numbers and these levels for the past several years. This was not an intentional disregard for the permit. We honestly were unaware of its existence until Jeremy brought it to my attention in August. Otherwise, we would have been addressing this earlier. So it has been a long time.
And how many years have you been president?
I have been a director for 3 years.
Okay. And then
Lynn
how
was
many-
there for 20.
Right.
Right.
And then how many years have you been
A year
president?
and a half.
Okay.
So the files, anyway. I've
Lynn
read the
knew what was-
bylaws, I've read the minutes, I've read everything, but this is something that I had never
There was an
seen.
executive director between Leila and Lynn as well.
I thought so, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So each year, the Nature Center serves over 400 families in our on-site school programs and thousands of others who visit our building and whom we visit off-site. We operate our programs under the strict licensing requirements of the Connecticut Department of Early Childhood, and we hold permits with the USDA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services for our live animal collection. Our specific updates to the permit are outlined in Section F of the original permit, and I have highlighted the changes that we're requesting in blue, increased the size of the font, and added line numbers to make it reader-friendly for tonight. So that's the copy that you see. It has line numbers across.
We're about to give it out to you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. There is also a matrix that you've got that we created for park and recreation, which quantifies the differences between the existing permit and our change request in detail. So they support each other. To save the commission's time, I will not address program name changes, only the changes that reflect operating hours, participant numbers, or traffic flow in and out of the park. So starting on lines 12 through 14, we seek to increase the time limit from 1 hour a day to 3 hours a day for our caretaker and child programs. They're an important entry point for families interested in adding nature-based activities to their children's upbringing. And because our space is limited, we can accommodate the interest level by adding 2 more hours of programming a day. So I just keep going?
Yep, keep
Okay.
going. And are you going to follow your letter?
I'm going to follow the changes, the one with the numbers on the left, I think.
Okay, does that also follow this net effective?
It does. They
Kinda, sorta?
reflect each other.
All right. Because-
Exactly.
No, not
exactly.
really.
Because they're
There's
meant to
some
do
kinda-
two different things. This measures, this quantifies the differences. This describes it. On line 14 through 16, we seek to extend occasional after-school program hours from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. in order to accommodate scout troops for night hikes or other early evening programs. These do not happen regularly, but rather on demand, and can average 10 times a year. On this topic, we also seek to increase the number of children who can participate in these programs from 12 to 24. Scout troops often exceed 12 children, so we believe that 24 is a safe maximum that allows us to serve troops as one unit rather than having to split them up over 2 different
Okay,
sessions.
stop you for a second there. When you do a troop, do troop leaders go with them?
Yes.
Are they included in your 24?
No,
Okay.
they are currently not. On the matrix, though, in the first page, number 3, you'll see the typical number of scouts who come in the 2019 actuals column.
Right, so part of my question on some of these things, and I don't want to get into too much detail at this current point, is, your average probably maybe, 17 people, and you're asking for 24. Why is that?
Well, you'll see in 2018, we went as high as having a group of 30 troop members there. That was the highest we've gone. It's a lot, and it doesn't seem to be the norm. So we chose 24 as what seemed to be a fair number.
And how many parents are there usually? How many adults?
That can differ. Depends on the age of the troop.
Probably 2 or
Emily's
3.
a phone is
It's probably 2 or 3.
2 or 3. Yeah, if it's a larger group. If they're younger, there are going to probably be more parents that hang out longer.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Lines 19 and 20 refer to our vacation programs, which are February and April public school vacation weeks, for example, where we can serve as many as 48 children. And so we seek to increase the limit in the original permit from 36 to 48.
Now, is 48, is that statutory?
That's well within, yes, the licensing limits.
The
All
license-
of- Sorry.
The license with the state of Connecticut?
Yeah. All of our ratios are way below because we believe in higher teacher to student ratios. So any number that I'm mentioning is well beneath what we are licensed to be able to.
And is there any
accommodate.
square footage requirement for that stuff per kid?
There are, yes, for
I
our
was
licensing.
president of Middlesex Club, and we had
Yeah.
the same issues, but we were not licensed and got cited by the state.
Right. But
You guys
we
licensed.
again, we are well within all of the licensing requirements, and in fact, often have better ratios in terms of teacher to students.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about capacity of the building.
We are well within the
That's fine.
capacities of the building. Yeah. On lines 21 and through 23, our summer camp was approved to host 48 children daily in 2000, and now we serve a maximum of 85 children a day. Our summer camp remains one of our most popular programs, and we've grown to accommodate the interest from local families while retaining our very high standards and low counselor to camper ratio. Again, we operate under a state of Connecticut camp license and meet or exceed all of their safety requirements for ratios.
Can I stop you there for a
Yeah.
second? How did you miss that when you came on as the executive director?
Miss what?
The difference between 48 cap to
The
85?
permit was not in our files at all.
I
But-
didn't know there was a cap. And we were already operating at a higher number than that anyway.
Then the state.
But like,
license.
hold on a second, but like Lynn Hammond would have known what the cap was, right? So you look at last year's enrollment was X, that next year's enrollment is Y, and then you just say, oh, we'll just take anybody? That's the part where, that's the disconnect that I have.
No. So there was nothing that was intentional
I
in
understand.
our increasing the
Yeah,
number, other
I'm
than
not asking that.
responding to demand.
Okay, so here's a better question. How many years has it been running at 85 approximately? For
The
more
past
than
2
3?
years, we've probably had 85, and it has increased from the year prior, and I'm sorry that I don't have those numbers. When I got there, we were serving at least 60 children a day.
So 3 years ago it was at 60.
I don't
children.
think it's that drastic.
I'm sorry,
But-
could you step up
So
to
the
the
point
microphone,
is-
I
because
don't
I
think
can't
it's
hear you
that
back.
drastic of a change. I
Thank
think
you.
we've been operating on a much higher level than the 2000 permit before the building was actually serving anybody, you know, for the better part of the executive directorship of Elizabeth and Leela, which is representing about 12 years worth of time.
So you think
Well, we
that's
can-
it's been over 48 for more
I've
than
had
5
children in
years?
camp there for 10 years, and it's looked about the same at drop-off and pickup times. in
You
all
as a
those
mom
times.
have?
Yes.
Okay. It's looked about the same, but in your files, you have.
I can pull up the data
We
for
can
you.
find out the
Yeah.
data
I would like to
for
see that.
each of the prior years, as far back as we, as certainly can.
Because it's a revenue thing. I mean, you charge
It
X amount of
actually
kids.
isn't. I mean, for us.
Well, I mean, you know how much revenue you had in
We know our
2000
numbers. We can look up our numbers.
2010, right?
Right,
The problem is the staff cost with each incremental child
I understand.
yeah.
doesn't create a big budget surplus.
I
It's more
it's-
about the parent anger when their child doesn't get into the program that we're trying to accommodate.
Every other club in Holly Pond and Middlesex have got the same problem.
So numbers for the past 5 years?
Sure.
Is that, okay.
I'm trying to get back to when Linham was involved, which is prior to your time and prior to your time.
Yes. And I can tell you that when she left, our numbers were very low. We were having problems with enrollment. So there could be a dramatic change in an effort to re-enroll people between that. So I'll go back to that year.
Thank
Okay?
you.
We are mindful of the traffic issues that can arise in the park during drop-off and pickup while the 7 weeks of summer camp are in session. And so we've developed a valet drop-off and pickup system like they use at the YMCA preschool that has worked well and continues to be fine-tuned. I do have traffic charts here if anyone has specific questions about how that flows.
We'll go over that. That's the thing that's on your board, right?
Yeah.
We'll go over that towards the end.
Okay, perfect. Our Down on the Farm event, held on Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, was not singled out in the original permit back in the year 2000. But it has grown to the degree that we've added it as a separate item starting on line 31. The goal of this event is to build awareness for the Nature Center in the community with an accessible ticket price and lots of great fresh air fun. In recent years, the event has been attended by 1,500 people over a 4.5-hour period. It requires the use of much of the park, except for the tennis courts, playground, community garden, baseball, and soccer fields. It includes pony rides, ponding lessons, trail hikes, a petting zoo, picnic lunches, and much more. After a record-breaking attendance of 1,800 in 2019, we communicated with the police department about how we can do better with parking and traffic control, and I've met with Captain Marin of the Darien Police Department, and he has shared his information, and I have some information from him here tonight if you're interested. I've also spoken with the fire marshal about the evacuation plan in case of any sudden need to evacuate the park. And we feel as though we have a good plan in place to hold a successful event moving forwards that will have safety in mind and will accommodate as many people as we can have.
You said Captain Anderson or something?
Captain Marin.
Oh, that's Jerry the cop. Okay.
Yeah,
No, please.
Don Anderson got
Right.
promoted, so he's been working closely with Layla and bringing along Officer Marin as well.
Captain.
No, for
This night.
15 years. Can you comment on Captain Anderson or Chief Anderson's note at this point in time?
I can, and part of that was a big part of the conversation and the meeting that I had with Captain Marin. And he gave me something that I could say on his behalf to you. This is a quote. "With the proper planning in place from a policing and public safety perspective, we believe the event can be held safely. After careful consideration of our after-action review, we conducted following the May 2019 event. We have spoken to the Nature Center and made recommendations that will more effectively manage traffic and safety conditions, including the hiring of additional officers and private parking attendants, the rescheduling of other sporting events on the property that day, and limiting ticket sales. We continue to work with the Nature Center on a parking and traffic plan."
Now, does that cover all 3 events that Chief Anderson said? Or
That is
just-
specific to Down on the Farm because it is so significantly different than
Okay.
others.
I'm sorry. So the police captain talked about rescheduling other events. Do you or the police department have the power and authority to reschedule other events on town property?
Well, that's going to relate back to Parks and Rec.
She raised it, it wasn't on
Right,
here.
yeah, it's going to relate.
So
back to
we
Parks and Rec.
seek a permit to use all of the parking lots in the park during the event. In the past years, we have been able to have the soccer rescheduled. This year, we were expecting that to happen, and it didn't. And so we feel as though we have to communicate better with Park and Rec so that we're sure that the soccer games get rescheduled.
So the rescheduling of events is directly related to parking concerns?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Then how did the other 2, Hoot and Howl, which was that this past weekend?
That was Sunday.
How did it go?
Great.
And
It
how
was
many
great.
people do you think were there?
We had 200 people there.
Oh, okay.
It's ranged to 200 to 300. It's a family event before Halloween, so it doesn't draw the same kinds of crowds.
And then what about the chili cook-off?
We no longer do the chili cook-off, but we do a fundraising event in the evening, which was a weekend ago, where we had 275 people, and it was fine. It was-
Adults only.
Adults only, yeah, in
Okay.
the evening.
So relative to that, because at one part of the application, it lumped 3 together, the only one that you cared most about is the down on the farm.
Because of the 1,800.
Right, no, I get you.
We just separated it because it was a different
fine.
beast than anything else that was being referred to in the permit.
Okay, is Hoot and Howl, is that supposed to keep going on forever at this point in time?
It's an annual, yeah, this was our 17th annual this
Okay.
year,
And it's granted in the original application.
Okay.
yeah.
And then what about the chili cook-off?
That has been an annual, and that also is included in, let me see what line it is included in. What's the new name for it?
Line
Lines
27.
26 through 28 are those original events that were included in the original permit.
So we're not asking for an
There are-
amendment on those.
Yeah. It says there are also some special events conducted by the Nature Center each year. These events have attracted 250 to 300 people, and that they must be coordinated with Park and Rec to avoid conflicts. So that holds for our Hoot and Howl, for Fireside, and if we were to do any other smaller events.
So if you look at this document, this one that's in blue, is that still in number 11? It's not number 12, right? Or is down on the farm 11 and then the other 2 would be 12?
That document is in a bag over here, so if I
Sure, you really want. Friendly people.
Oh, that one, okay, the original permit.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay. An annual special events.
See, it says up top, hosts three to four open houses a year, It names the other stuff. I read this document, that's where I'm going back to.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, can you just put maybe like refer to the date and receipt by, just so everyone knows the document
Okay,
we're talking
yeah,
about?
I don't have that on here.
I don't have it on there either. It's
That's
the-
it, you're looking at a different one.
The one we got in our packet.
Yeah, they're all in the pack. Oh, this, okay. So it's, copy of original update to permit request prepared by Gil Lefferts in 2000, Darien Nature Center, proposed programming in Cherry Lawn Park, January 2021, 2000, with the 2019 requested adjustments in blue. This side? Yes,
Yes.
thank you. And what page were you referring to?
I'm looking at page 5 of this document,
Thank you.
which is item 11 and item 12.
So item 11, special events?
Right, I'm trying to figure
And item
out,
12,
Right.
fundraisers? Got it.
So you're, just
I'm
clarify
just
your
trying to
question.
I'm trying to match these two together.
Well,
And
the
then your
permit
narrative
itself is what we are really, this is a narrative to help describe what Gil Lefferts 20 years ago had written as a narrative, but
Yep.
it wasn't the actual permit. So I
Yeah,
am
it
referring
falls
to the,
within- It falls within 11 special events, which in black is the current existing events. In 2000, 3 to 4 open houses per year, historically attracting 250 to 300 people. Those events would fall under that, which is previously granted.
But that's also a fundraiser, no? It's like redundant, number 12.
y-
No, not necessarily, I don't think you make
It
money
means
on.
private fundraisers
Hold
outside
on, hold on,
of.
hold on.
which event are we talking about?
We don't make money on Hoot and Howl, we do make money on the Fireside Adult Evening.
Okay.
That's our
What about,
largest.
what about the,
Down on the farm, it's a
Okay.
marginal income.
right, so it's not really a fundraiser.
It's,
it's
we
a
do not
special
consider it a fundraiser, we consider it a community event.
So the only real fundraiser is
event. We haven't gotten.
Once a
there yet.
year in October.
once a year, and that's the fireside,
Yeah.
which used to be the chili.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
which turned from a community event, the Chili Challenge, which wasn't a real profit maker, to our Fireside one single event fundraiser, which is why that prior language is confusing. Because in our mind, that's our big fundraiser. In the past, it was a community
That's
event.
true.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
so let's go back to where we were. We were,
I think we were at lines 36 and 37.
yeah, you just
The actual
finished.
permit?
Right, yeah, you just
Right.
finished 31 to 35, right?
Right.
Yep.
In
Okay.
lines 36 and 37, we are seeking an increase to the number of children who can attend birthday parties from 14 to 24 children. This is a reflection of the inclusive trend to invite full classes to parties. And 24 would allow for full attendance from the largest of classes in our school system. We also find that Sunday mornings are a popular time for toddler parties and would like to include Sunday mornings as a time for parties in the permit.
Okay.
In addition to the events mentioned in the original permit on lines 26 through 28, which we were just talking about, the Nature Center has also been a site for not-for-profit or private event rentals. So we have added the final text, starting on line 41, to include these events. Over the years, the numbers of these events has risen to as many as 10. However, the result of our recent strategic planning process was that these events, which can provide important income to our budget, are also a distraction from our mission work. So we believe that a maximum of 5 per year both serves the community need for space without being a distraction to our core mission. In 2019, for example, we rented the building to the Darien Power Squadron for their annual meeting. There was a memorial service for a member of our staff's spouse, and the Junior League of Darien hosted a fundraising cocktail party there. Those were our 3 events.
And what about the year prior that Middlesex Club had their
Right, so-
Christmas party there one year?
Yep, the year prior, you'll see in the matrix that there were more parties, and it was distracting, and it was difficult for us to conduct business. And so we made a decision that we would not be a site for many parties, that we would try to contain it to 5 or less a year.
So it's a Power Squadron, the YMCA, private party, Hoyt exchange. Okay, now, that private party stuff is not at all, was never included in 2000, right?
Exactly.
It's
That is
not- it's
exactly
not
right.
unreasonable.
It would be in addition to the events that were included in the 2000 permit.
Which, just to draw the distinction, in the permit, it's all events that are hosted by the Darien Nature Center. This is actually renting our space and having no affiliation with the event at all.
There you go.
Or in the case of a memorial service, we will sometimes donate the space.
But a memorial service, that one you're talking about was an employee of the Nature Center.
A
Yeah,
spouse.
a spouse of the employee of the Nature Center.
It's,
Yeah.
they're kind of tied together.
Yeah. Or we.
But it's not a Darien Nature Center
understand.
public event. It's,
understand.
lending our space to the family.
So one of the events that's hosted by the Nature Center is our main fundraising event, so I just want to be clear, because that the 5 is a 4, with 1 being yours.
No.
If you
No.
want 5 plus 1, then this note, I mean,
So-
don't.
Tell me what you are looking at right
So
now.
I'm looking at your net change note for
Yeah.
requested update. One of the events that's hosted by the Nature Center is our main fundraising event. Just since we're doing this, the others are rental opportunities. So you have yourself listed, and we seek 5 opportunities. That's fine.
Yeah.
If you want
Yeah,
5
you're right.
other,
That is actually a mistake.
The
That is
matrix
a
was
mistake on
kind of
my.
created
that's
on
fine.
the
So
back
you
end.
really want 5 other events.
Those would be, yeah, and that event would,
For each other. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
that event would, our fundraising event would be part of lines 26, 27. So that was a mistake on my part, including that in the matrix there. It's confusing.
Okay, so relative to these potential 5 events, what's the mission behind it?
It's really, it is more to serve the community, which is one of our missions. And there is income that can be associated with it.
Yeah, we can't get into that. That's not part of our purview,
Mhm.
or is use. Whether you make money or lose money, that's got nothing to do with
Right.
us.
So I would say that the Darien Power Squadron, okay.
But the question was, why would we do this? The answer is revenue, basically bottom line revenue for a non-for-profit.
Right, but
That
that's
serves
not
the
our,
community.
Okay, that's fine.
yeah,
Okay,
that's not our purview. We're use.
okay, let's keep going.
Easy.
No, I'm just saying,
But you
we
Okay.
don't, you asked the question,
did.
and then you
Okay.
said,
Okay.
it's not our purview, so I'm just saying, let's move on.
I understand.
Okay.
What about the place? Thanks.
What's that?
Why did we spend so much time on the place?
Right, that was in the original permit.
Exactly.
But,
Okay.
I mean, isn't the issue about the private events is that it's not really about the revenue and where, it's about its hours and the traffic flow outside of normal operating hours. And I
Correct.
think that's why it's probably an issue that we should be discussing, not that it's for revenue. And I think it's great that it's mostly focused on events that serve the community, so thank you. But I think why it's worth talking about is because, and I think probably why you added it to the permit, is that it's outside of your normal operating business hours. You are in a largely, while you're in a public municipally owned park, it's largely residential around you.
Correct.
And so maybe why it's worth discussing is that it's outside their normal daytime operating hours, and there's traffic going into the park that normally is not going into the park at night. And so perhaps, it's a good thing. I mean, they should be putting it on the permit. We should be talking about it.
Definitely.
And we have told our neighbors about this and asked for their input, and we have received no negative thoughts on our permit request for changes.
Thank you. That's actually.
Okay, so you're done with your lines.
I'm done with my formal presentation now. We
Okay.
can answer.
So let's go over, if we can go over this again, just
Sure.
real quick.
Matrix?
Yeah, the matrix.
Just to be clear, the matrix was prepared at the request of Parks and Recreation Committee's request last week to see exactly side by side how the permit differs from our application.
It was a great request. It did great. It was a great reason. So let's edit this, because you said there's a couple things on here that are not right.
Well, there's that
Let's
one thing.
edit this.
Okay.
Which one? Which matrix? Green?
This one. They're both the same.
I think
Oh, they're
that's-
the same? Okay.
They're not exactly the same.
You attach one to the thing you gave us tonight, is that?
That's
Are
the
they
one.
exactly the same? They should.
Oh,
be.
they are?
They should be.
So can
Unless
we get rid of one?
Yes.
You gave us a new one tonight, which is,
And
Same
we're
with
comparing it
every other.
against large font lined permit?
No, the large font with lines happened literally this afternoon, and I realized it was really hard to tell, to guide people, so I added those lines.
I like lines.
This is more topic
Okay.
related, and particularly topics that were of interest to Park and Rec. So it does not cover the entire permit
Okay,
request.
well,
Matrix.
let's work off of this
Okay,
and see what it's missing, which is on this,
okay.
okay? So the first one's kind of easy. That's lines, what, 3 to 13?
That is, let me just get my other piece here,
3 to
and that will
6.
help me get it organized. Yep, that's the caretaker and me increase from 1 hour to 3 hours.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go right ahead, sir.
The increase in 3 hours, is that the same number of kids for 3 hours instead of 1 hour? Or 3 times the number of kids for an hour each? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to get a
Yep,
sense.
that's a very good point. We operate that program in one room of the Nature Center. So in order to accommodate more families, we would increase the time load. We can't have more children on site at the same time.
So the net effect is 3 times the amount of children.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep.
But they're spread over a 3-hour period.
Correct.
So for
Right.
argument's sake, it's 12 kids per hour, so one from 12 to 36, but it's 3 hours.
10, right, 10 children.
Yeah, 10, 12, whatever. Okay,
Increase the length of time that after-school programs can run. So that is lines 14 through 16, where we're talking about the scout troops. That would be a net increase of 12 additional students or after-school participants.
And later in the evening.
so is that on this matrix, that's 2 and 3 combined?
That is
'Cause
3
two-
alone.
Yeah, 2 and 3 on
Two-
the matrix.
I'm sorry, 3 alone. Good, 2
Right.
and 3.
Because the first thing you do is extending the hours, the second thing you do is extend the number of
Correct.
kids.
Right.
So, quick question. 2018, you went till 8:45 PM, 8:30 PM. Why are you asking for 8 PM?
It just seems reasonable it's the way we would like to be done earlier so our staff can get home.
Okay, so you're doing it to help
We're
you
doing it
as
out of
well.
choice
Okay,
for, yeah.
Where we decided to make upfront concessions, we just opted to do that. If we didn't,
Concessions to who?
to
Us?
what we've done in the past that exceed the permit, if we could scale it back in a way that wouldn't affect us anyway and might even be better for us, it was easier to make an application that asked for less.
Okay, that's fine.
Now, one thing, Leila, which we haven't gotten into, your parking area, which is to this, I'll call it to this right side of the Nature Center.
Yes,
How many cars can that hold?
25.
So usually there's, for these types of events, there's a few staff people there.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there would be, say, 24 scouts attending, you'd probably have 3 or 4 Nature Center staff.
Yes, I mean, two. I'm looking at my program director because she's got all that good information.
And
Most of those scouts' parents wouldn't stay,
That's
so
what
there
I
would
was
be a
thinking.
drop-off. And then the others would park.
So
Since-
relative to something like this, which is 2 and 3 we're talking about, there's maybe 1 or 2 additional cars,
Yeah, I was gonna decrease.
Correct.
right? Okay. You had a question?
My question, if we were gonna bring up parking, I mean,
We're
parking
gonna-
is the big.
We're gonna go over that.
Okay, then I won't,
Right.
I'll reserve that till later.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, number 4 on the matrix is reflected in lines 19 and 20 on the revision, and that has to do with our vacation programs and increasing the number of children who can participate.
From 36 to 48.
So it's an additional 12 children.
Can you just, I think it's a good set, can you define, like, vacation? Is election day like a vacation day?
That's a good question.
Is Columbus Day a vacation day?
Yeah, no. So vacation programs are generally when the Darien Public Schools have an extended period of vacation in February and in April, and in December, right before Christmas. If we were to have if we were to have a one-day program, we're closed on Election Day, but if there were another day, like, what's a day that we do a one-day,
Wednesday, we have
We have one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
No.
you know, it's going after, right?
So this is really in reference to those week-long vacations.
Yes, April,
Okay.
February, yeah.
Okay, so relative to that, can you check with the Parks and Rec people and find out if, there's soccer practice going on or there's baseball practice going on during those same times? Because that might not be a conflict.
It has not been a conflict in the past.
Because the town's basically shut down because the schools are shut down and,
Right, so people are away, and this is a drop-off program, so they come, they go. There's
Okay.
no parking.
so
issues.
we're gonna, if we get to it, we're gonna define the vacations as spring break, winter break, Christmas break, whatever the school is
Okay.
on break.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yep.
Fair statement?
yep.
Wouldn't it be more important to say that it's a valet drop-off and pickup?
Yeah,
Because
because
it's about traffic?
But we're talking, I'm just trying to define vacation,
Okay.
is what we're
School
trying to do.
vacations.
Right,
School vacation,
right,
multi-day school vacation.
right. Okay, so that was 19 to 20, now we're up to,
So number 5 on the matrix has to do with our summer camp program, and that is on lines 21 and 23. So there, we're talking in the matrix about 37 additional campers per day that could be allowed on site from the original permit.
the original permit from 2000 was
2000.
48.
Yeah.
And relative to that, you're gonna get us additional information going back 5
Yeah.
years? Okay,
And is it a drop-off valet?
It is.
Yes.
yeah, it's campus.
And you'll see on the matrix, the average day is 75 campers. So we're asking to increase to 85 so we can accommodate some particularly busy weeks of demand, but that is not going to be representative through the 7 weeks of summer because we do see ebbs and flows.
It's that first week that everybody is looking for something to do while other children are still in school.
Okay, with regards to that, to go from 48 people or kids to 85 kids, what does the parking demand go up for staff?
May I show you?
Of course, yes, there's a good time, because these graphics are really for the camp, right?
Okay.
Wait,
Here
just-
them are. So, yeah.
Just as you're pulling that out, Leela, I'll say that since the issue came to our attention that we needed a special permit from Parks and Rec and needed to pay for parking that was used continually during the summer, we've started to do that. So we expect to continue to do that on an ongoing annual basis and to be willing to be denied spots inside the park for our camp counselors. So just to be clear, tonight's permit about the number of students using the camp isn't directly related to us necessarily using parking spots. We expect to have to request that on an annual basis from Parks and Recreation and pay a fee for auxiliary parking kind of up by the community gardens near the baseball fields at the front of the park. And if that is rejected by Parks and Rec because they decide to get rid of that parking lot, then we will have to deal with that particular issue completely separate from this permit application. We'll have to find parking at Henley School or wherever and bus our camp counselors to and from our programming. So I just don't want to have this parking issue necessarily relate so much to the permit of number of camp counselors here, because if we can't park staff here, we'll have to.
But that should be
But now,
included.
hold on, wait a second. To my knowledge, well, we can get into this, my kid's a camp counselor, right, at Token Inc. She doesn't drive. I drop her off. So not, if you're gonna say you went from 6 camp counselors to 16, then we can maybe get into the semantics of who's driving, who's not driving.
Wait, can I just, Steve, it's not
That's part of
semantics,
it.
because when we talk to other businesses in town, and whether it's a hairdresser or a restaurant or whatever,
understand. I wanna
we
get
say,
there.
okay, how many employees are you gonna have, and how many customers are you anticipating? And we ask them to be accountable and to anticipate and plan for both their employee parking and their customer, visitor parking. So I think we need,
Yeah.
and these guys, these women are here and they're willing to talk about it. So I think we should, treat them to the same level and, ask the same questions that we would any other applicant that would come before the commission. And I think they're addressing it
See, we're going to.
But I think
relative.
pushing it to the side,
No, we're not pushing it to the
No,
side.
so Helen,
Hold on,
let's
wait,
ask a
hold on,
question.
wait,
How
hold on,
many
hold on.
people
Hold on.
working?
Jen, hold on. Relative to the to downtown, there's this thing called the Mechanic Street lot. What we make a lot of these
I
businesses do.
wasn't
Hold on.
speaking
I
specifically
understand, I
about, but I'm
understand.
saying we ask any
We're
applicant to
going to.
address parking.
We're going to.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest traffic flow in parking is probably one of the bigger issues that needs to be considered
Well,
with
certainly,
their permit.
certainly as it comes to Parks and Rec, because they don't know their final plan for Cherry Lawn for the future. So they don't want to be beholden to this permit so that it inhibits them to do certain things. So my only point tonight was to make clear that this permit doesn't address specifically any rights we have to parking within the park.
Okay.
That is as a year-by-year basis granted by them for which we pay. So last year, we did pay for spots here,
How many?
Where's that?
20 or so.
So, okay. so
20 or
this is-
so of an overflow, 40.
Okay, so these are the 3 parking lots at Cherry Lawn Park. This one is part of the Nature Center that has 25 spots. This is the one that has the pretty circle in the middle by there that has 27 spots. And this is the one that services really the playground and the tennis
Okay.
courts.
Let me
And that
back
has
up.
20 spots.
Let me back up for a second. You gave us 3 or 5 things, diagrams 1, 2, 3, and 4.
This is
and 5.
diagram 3 of 5.
Okay, so let us get there.
And then, is this the?
And this is the overflow parking lot that does not have spaces defined. So we are saying unofficially, because we really, you
Because
know,
I
we're
believe
not-
it's a dirt parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have 25 spots that are yours, and you need no one's permission to use your 25 spots.
No. Annually, Parks and Rec grants us that.
No,
and-
not.
No, no, no,
Oh,
no,
oh,
no.
So you have
Fine.
25 spots.
Right.
So I see that it says temporary twos parking. Are you
Right.
meaning twos, the parents of twos?
Exactly.
Okay, so
Okay, well,
you're
let's
at
go-
capacity with your temporary twos parking historically, and that was not at 75 or 85 students.
No, because they represent a smaller group.
Okay, let's go back to the initial question I got. You went from 48 to 85. What's the change in staffing requirement? That was the question that
Change in
I.
staffing requirement from 48 to,
85.
let me just, give me a second to think.
Emily's doing the math.
Are you? Yeah. It's always been high while I've been there, so I don't. I'm gonna say somewhere between 6 and 8 more staff.
So the 20 accounts for the 6 or 8
They're
more
not all
staff?
drivers.
They are not all drivers, so this is a
Right.
generous representation because it changes every week whether we need extra counselors or not, and some of them drive and some of them don't drive.
Right, that's my.
So this is our attempt at being overly
Conservative.
conservative with the number of cars that would be parked for staff.
So for 48 kids,
Additional kids.
no, hold on. For 48 kids, how many staff do you have of the, how many people do you think drive?
How many of our staff drive?
How many,
In
for
summer,
48 kids, how many staff do you have?
We
in
would
the
have
building?
about 12 staff.
Okay.
We should have 10 or 12. And what
And then-
percentage of them drive?
So
I'm gonna guess, because I don't know.
That's fine.
But I would guess that probably 80% of them, 70% of them.
Okay, so that's about 10 spaces. Now we went from 48 to 85. So you went from 10 to 20 spaces.
Mhm.
Okay,
And that's what we.
We have our staff park far by the community garden to leave our parking lot open for the more transient 2-year-old parents to be able to safely escort their child to and from the camp without having to cross any of the busy roads through the park. So that's our priority and why we have our staff park far. And if we lost those overflow spots, if we weren't granted those on a year-by-year basis, we would still have a priority placed on having the 2-year-olds holding their mother's hand, typically with an infant in a bucket, to use these spots that are most convenient to our camp programming.
now those spots are transient? For my
Yes.
wife drops
So-
off my kid?
5 minutes,
Okay, you need 25 spots for that? Really?
yes.
they're twos,
They're choose.
they're little
And
kids,
buckets.
the bigs.
Big cars.
The husband.
Right, and I think what
Wives,
they're doing is
partners.
they're thinking about,
Okay.
they're prioritizing the safety of those customers, constituents, members of the community, and thinking about, okay, while not all of our additional staff will drive, some will be teenagers who will be dropped off, some may carpool together. There are those spots that they will ask Parks and Rec for permission to use, and if not, they'll
On an
consider.
annual basis.
Right, and you'll consider alternatives at school locations, you know,
Churches,
by agreement
whatever.
with the town or Board of Ed, and you will bus or transport people from
Correct.
auxiliary parking off-site if that need is necessary.
Correct.
So, if I may, that kind of begs the question of what do we do about staff parking? I mean,
Yeah, we gotta
do
figure
we
that out.
ignore that, or?
No,
Take
that's the
care
most
of it?
important thing. That's the most important thing.
Let me
Oh,
just
go ahead.
ask, nobody's here that was here 20 years ago. Right, is that?
You were. I was sitting right here. You was there.
Okay, I'm talking about of the
Well,
applicant.
that's good.
So,
Emily actually was on staff at the time.
Okay.
I apologize.
Mrs. Sport probably lived in town, right?
It,
Can't speak to this.
it seems to me that comparing 2000 to 2019 and 48 to 85 is sort of silly. Because I don't, what I mean is, we have experience what happened last year. How many did you have last year, and where did you park them?
Right.
That's 75 to 85. That's a 12% difference,
Right.
whatever the number is. I'd be more interested to know where you put your 75 average staff and kids and drop-offs and so on and so forth.
So last year operated pretty well after a few hiccups in the first 2 weeks of camp programming, where we did work with Parks and Rec on controlling the parking line, because there were, I think, 2 calls placed by dog walkers unhappy about how quickly it took them to enter the park because they were stopped in a line. So no, this is a real issue for Parks and Rec, so we wanted to address it, and we are willing to address it and make accommodations and change traffic flow. And but the actual implication of last year is we paid for overflow parking, and all of our staff parked in the dirt lot by the community garden.
That's the overflow.
That's the overflow lot, and that's where everyone did park on a daily basis, and we paid the town to use those spots for 7 weeks of the year. And we did have a drop-off valet program for our 3s and 4-year-old campers. So yes, I think it is a little misleading to look at 48 compared to 85, because there has been a slow creep over that 19-year period where it just hasn't been that significant of a jump. So we have been dealing with this with Parks and Rec along the way, not realizing we were in violation of the permit at all.
I mean, I guess my point is, if it works, it worked last year at 75.
But it didn't work, that's why we're here.
No.
We're here
No,
because we're
excuse me,
operating
I don't
under
believe
no
that's the
permit.
case.
That's not the case.
Yeah.
They're here to get honest.
Correct.
Okay, but if it worked at 75 last year.
It worked at, I'm sorry,
It worked at
No, you said-
85.
Okay, 85.
75 is an average day,
Oh, you
but
had 85
at
already.
at our 85,
If
we
it
were
worked
at
at
85.
last year's gonna work at 85 this year.
With better planning.
So it worked at
With
85.
the planning we learned after the first week of camp last year. And so
And after the first week, your traffic from
Brookside in,
Brookside in was okay?
yes.
And you did
There
not
were-
get any
It
complaints?
was better. It was better. I
Okay,
mean,
so that we'll
there
talk.
can be, all it takes, right, is one child to cry,
It's a
and this backs up a little bit, but we station people here to manage the traffic, so there could be a 2 or 3 5-minute period where someone may have to drive around rather than going straight through, but they're managed by our staff who's doing that. And
Yeah.
that would be 9:15 and 9:20, and then maybe in the afternoon.
Now, is the camp, when you talk about highest in daily average, is the camp a week at a time, like the other clubs?
Yes. You can enroll for a 5-day period, 7 times through the summer, consecutive weeks.
So of the 7 weeks last year, 1 week was at 85?
Correct, the
And
first
that-
week.
The first week.
The highest.
So you struggled through that the first week, or you got through that first week? I don't mean to say struggle. You
It
got through
wasn't,
that
it
first.
really wasn't a struggle, yeah.
I'm sorry?
It was not a struggle.
Okay,
But
so
it
you
was
got
certain
through,
people's first day on the job, so, it is a little bit of a learning curve.
so you got through the first week, and then the second week it went down to 75 kids.
According to Parks and Rec, there were no complaints thereafter by town residents about our impact on town traffic in and out of the park.
Okay, but you also went down by 10 kids, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean-
That's what you're sounding like you're saying.
It's hard because the first week being our busiest with the greenest employees, it's hard to know exactly what the what the responsible aspect of it is. You know, whether it's the employee who doesn't know exactly what to tell a parent who's asking a question, or it's a child who doesn't want to leave their parent and go to a new camp for the first day, or it's, you know, it's hard to know if it's a numbers thing, because if it's, I think it's too circumspect.
What was your second busiest week? And did you have any traffic complaints during that week?
I do not believe we did. I didn't hear, honestly, I'd have to ask Park and Rec if they received them on certain times.
I don't recall them. I
Yeah.
thought they were later on.
I'm
Okay,
sorry,
well,
I
you
can't
can't
pick her up.
talk,
Yeah,
Pam.
you have
You-
to come
No,
up to-
none. She's saying she cannot recall.
No, I cannot recall it.
You just say who you are.
Well, no, the applicant spoke for Pam. Go ahead, Pam.
Pamela Gary, Director of Parks and Rec. I don't recall when the phone calls came in.
Could you spell your last name?
Gery.
Thank you.
But are you saying we did get phone calls?
We
Did you come back up in?
We did get phone calls, yes.
Okay, so you got phone calls in July 2019, right? First, or
It
end
was,
of
it
June?
was, it was late.
Whatever,
it
it's
was
the last,
July.
it's the last week in June and then the first.
But again, I don't recall when they were. I know we got phone calls because Brookside was getting backed up, so.
The first week or afterwards?
I don't know.
She doesn't-
That's-
Yeah, not sure when it started. We just got the phone calls. I can't even recall how long they had been operating. at
The
that point.
reason why I'm speaking without exact knowledge, but a pretty good idea of this, is that we implemented changes after we received a call from Parks and Rec about complaints, and those were implemented after the first week of camp. So that's why I have a pretty good idea of when the calls came in, although I don't have Pam's phone logs to know exactly. I know when we implemented changes because we needed to make accommodations.
Okay, but then your enrollment of the camp changes pretty much every week, doesn't it, by
It
one or
does.
two kids?
It drops off kind of successively through the summer,
Okay,
with some variance.
Okay.
You know,
Let-
occasionally, the fifth week will be very highly attended, for
And
example.
then a family gets the flu and we lose, you know what I mean? It
no,
does,
it's,
it changes.
I've been there. Right?
Understanding that enrollment changes and primarily the first week is your highest week of enrollment with your greenest staff, as you pointed out, and the youngest kids who may not be used to camp, might be their first week. And so that's going to be, you know, the roughest week at any camp, not just yours. But given that we're talking about original permit, which was almost 20 years ago, numbers versus current numbers, and I liked sort of the expression someone used of getting honest or getting honest. More honest. Do we anticipate that the numbers will get higher, or like, is this what we realistically think? I
No,
know
we're-
you spoke of a strategic plan was done where it seems that you looked at activities and be focused. So do we anticipate numbers are going to be higher, or is this what we think is realistic?
Carrie, it's up to us.
This is very realistic, Kara, because we want a commitment to quality. This is why the parents choose Darien Nature Center, is because it's a very low staff to student ratio. We are not motivated by profit. We're really motivated by programming and content that we're able to deliver, and that's a result of keeping the classroom size small. For example, in each of our classrooms, we are allowed to have in each of those classrooms up to 15.
9 children with 1 counselor,
And we instead choose to have
3 counselors to
Four.
the children. So there's
How
3,
many-
1 to 3.
How many classrooms do
But
you
I was
have?
thinking about the school programming. In the classrooms during the school year, we're allowed to have in the classrooms more children than we allow as like a registering body of the preschool programming, because we don't want it to be at our maximum. We want it to be quality control.
Right.
So our permit reflects a smaller level than what we could if we wanted to maximize.
And a realistic
This is
usage
realistic.
by the community And what you
Correct.
anticipate in the future.
In the future.
Will be
Yes.
the actual usage
Yes.
Yes.
and demand by the
We
community.
came with this permit so that we would never have to amend it. So you'll see like at 75 children is an average day, we're asking for 85, so we can accommodate on a random week where there's a ton of demand and committed parents who are, you know, really asking us to stretch, and we're willing to find a camp counselor for that single week to accommodate a few extra children. But we would prefer not to be ever stretched to our maximum.
Thank
Just
you.
because of the program.
Okay,
Okay,
question.
hold on. Jim?
A quick question, and I apologize if it's a little bit off topic, but you've referred to what we're authorized to do, the number of kids we're authorized to, we adhere to this and that restriction, so on and so forth. I assume are principally state.
Correct.
Who trumps how many kids can be in here? The state or the fire marshal?
I think both of them, in terms of a certain room.
Yeah.
The state would regulate the program, if you will. So whether it's camp, the state, they have to get a permit from the state for number of children at camp,
This is just summer camp we're talking about now.
summer camp. The state also regulates other things, which Layla mentioned. At summer camp, for example, the state regulates the number of children at camp. The fire marshal looks at things a little differently. They look at per room, and then the fire marshal will also look at the large events, the special events down on the farm. The fire marshal works with Layla on making sure that those special events are properly designed, laid out.
Okay, so you adhere to both?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Let's-
just, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
how many, hold on,
Question.
how many classrooms do you have?
We have 4 classrooms in our downstairs area. We have a library that can serve as a classroom upstairs, and then we have a theater room, which is a transitional room. But our primary classrooms are 4 downstairs.
So 4 classrooms plus 1 is 5 classrooms.
Plus a
right?
transitional room that is upstairs.
Okay, so I think in my math, in my head, 5 times 15, is that what you said you capped it at, is 75.
What are we talking about, our regular programming or camp?
I'm just talking about this camp thing.
Okay.
So 5 times 15 is 75, right?
We have an outdoor.
That, it is basically 5 times 15. Some rooms will put 10 in, some rooms will put 6 in. If the kids are much older, we'll
We have
put fewer kids.
Outdoor.
And they go outside.
Okay, because at Middlesex Club, there is no classroom, right? And there's nothing inside.
There doesn't have to be under a camp license.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. Just
Yeah.
because you have 15 kids in 5 classrooms, you don't just take 5 times 15, get you to 75. That's what I'm trying to figure out where the 85 comes from. That's my,
Well, the
But 'cause
85
you
comes
mentioned-
from
you
demand
mentioned-
and
you
from
mentioned
how we
classrooms.
can accommodate.
Okay.
So we are turning away families every week,
yep.
but
that
we
was all
can
fine.
very safely and with high quality accommodate 85 students and serve them. That would be the highest. What doesn't mean we would always do it. But
Okay.
that is what we can safely, within our license and with excellent service, provide to the community.
And you've done this for 1 year, right? Your history for this 75 and 85 is 1 year?
1 year would, no, 2 years we've really had to have blockbuster, results. So we've had 2 years of a lot of kids. 85 is probably our highest last year. But I feel as though we have 2 years of experience going through this.
Okay.
Okay, I have 3 questions. So at 85 kids with 3-to-1 ratios, that's 28.3 teachers. So it's not 3-to-1, right? I mean, you
It's
said
not
20.
3-to-1 if they get older. So
Okay.
if there's a group of 8-year-olds, they may have 10 8-year-olds with 2 counselors.
So if we could have the number of how many staff, just for overflow, so I have an idea. When do you apply for your permit for parking, and when do your applications for this program go out?
So we start accepting applications for summer camp counselors in January. And then last year, we asked for our permit a week or 2 into camp because we did not know that we needed a permit. We had been parking over here for years and not been permitted.
Okay, and when can you apply for parking? Because ideally, right, for us, we would need to know, like, we would want your permit to be in place so that you have a place to park before you have applications, right? Because if you have no place to park, then I need to know what your backup plan is for parking.
That makes sense. So we could apply for a permit tomorrow,
Okay.
if they would accept a permit for 2020.
Now, when do you start to enroll kids?
We start to enroll children in February.
It's open. It opens in February and shuts down when you're full.
No, we fill during the first 2 or 3 weeks of registration from our current families. We have a tiered registration program. So our current families get first dibs, our members get second dibs. By that point, we're about 85 to 90% full.
And that's March 1st, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Kara, did you have another question?
No, that was.
George, you okay for now?
May I inquire about number 3 there, the top one? So you've got the flow of the 2s with their temporary parking in the valet, and then on the left are the campers for the 3s. Does that all happen at the same time? Is everybody flowing in? Some go right to park and others?
That's exactly right.
But just to clarify, these are the 2s with their parent parking.
Oh,
The valet is for the 3s and 4s.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But they all use the same entrance, and they come through that way.
Okay.
Does every single age group start at the same exact time?
They do. That is a change that we actually made within the past 3 years. We at one point had staggered start times so that our younger campers came early and then our older campers came, and overwhelmingly our parents asked for the same time drop off because we have so many siblings. And so it was inconvenient for them.
Okay.
And it's worked fine having it as one time.
Okay.
Do you expect that the parents with the 2s will pass the cars with the 3s and 4s to get to your lot?
There is no passing. That's the big rule. So if you are a parent of a 2 and you are not parked yet, you wait until this line moves and you go in. So our key is that safety is first, and people are very patient, and they wait there, and then they are told by these 2 traffic directors when to pull into the lot.
And would anybody be getting out on the not the circular part, but the?
Never. Not during the summer, not when we have our staff there and we're making sure that it's flowing.
And after the 2 people drop off their 2s, then they get in the queue and leave.
So if they are done dropping off, and this is still happening, then this traffic director helps them get safely out. When these 4 cars that have completed their valet start moving, they would go behind, and then these guys would move.
Okay. Now, you did 5 diagrams of all this parking stuff. Do you want to explain the other 4?
If you'd like, 3 of them represent the different times of day at summer camp. So this represents the morning.
3 is the morning.
3 represents the morning.
This is 9:20
Number
to
4.
9:40 drop off.
Yep. Number 4 represents the noon pickup. So that's for our littlest campers who go home first. Their families drive in. Those blue cars are the parked cars who are walking down to the classrooms to get their 2-year-olds. And then they leave.
That was 4 you just said?
Yeah.
That is number 4. Number 4 has our cars over here parked in the Darien Nature Center lot, and still all of our staff over here because we haven't moved. And then they're there for 15 or so minutes while they're doing their drop off and chat, and then they leave.
And
At
just
that
clarify
point-
that the pickup times are different. Like, while we all start.
Hold on. You're
Yeah,
gonna
today.
you're gonna speak, you gotta come up. If not, she can
We
speak later.
We stagger our pickup times based on the age of the children at the end of camp, so that's why you see a variance.
So this is noon. That's why they can time it.
So at 11:45, every single parent comes to pick up their
Staggered.
2-year-olds.
Correct, they're
Yeah.
2-year-old.
They're 2-year-old.
To 2-year-olds.
Exactly. They park, they pick, they leave.
Okay.
Okay? Then, diagram number 5 is the 1:15 pickup for the older children.
And there's
You'll
no more
see
2s, there's no more 2s in the
There are no more
building.
2s in the building. Our
Hold on.
parking lot is empty, except, if there's a dog walker or a visitor to the park. But for our camp purposes, there's no one there, and our families come through the valet drop-off and pick up their children. Our staff remain in this parking lot.
And this is what age campers are these guys?
These would be 4 to 7 or 8.
Okay.
And just to make sure we have it on record, there's less than 25 twos that will be in the program. Yes.
about what happens, what
Diagram.
time's your camp end?
The camp ends at 1:30.
Oh, okay, so there's
For the
not, there is no
older
3:30
No,
issue, okay.
no.
The other stuff is night parties and stuff like that?
Yes.
Fundraising about, school year-end
We
weekdays?
can go through if you'd like.
We don't care, that's two, that's 1 and 2? I forget. Anyone
Yes.
care about 1 and 2?
Oh,
George?
nope. No.
This is our weekday parking during every day.
Which one's that?
School
Number
year,
1.
diagram 1 of 5. You'll see a mix of visitor and staff parking during school year.
Non-summer, normal.
Correct.
School
Non-summer.
year programming.
School year.
Okay,
And then diagram 2 is a fundraising event where we would, like Fireside, have a tent in our parking lot. And so everyone else parks over in the park with a permit for parking lot.
the relative to a fireside fundraiser you get, that's in conjunction with Park and Rec.
Correct.
Exactly.
And of course.
Okay, any questions?
Can I go back to 3?
Of course you can.
My favorite, number 3. Considering that flow, just thinking worst case scenario types. Dad is trying to get his 2-year-old into the building, but 2-year-old slips, falls, hits head, and Dad says, I want an ambulance, I gotta get this kid to a hospital. Have you plotted out what you would do to get an ambulance or a
That-
fire truck in and out when they?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. And that is exactly why our no passing rule is so firm. Because at any time, an emergency vehicle can pass through here to get to the parking lot or to get in front of the building.
Because the parking attendants will stop
Yes,
Will not
cars
let
from
anybody-
exiting
right,
in that.
right.
Or even encourage them to go into the overflow lot, maybe, to get out of the way.
I think whatever
Have to
would
go
be
through
the
that
very
to get to
best
overflow lot.
action, of- depending on what the situation is.
stop.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, an ambulance you think can pass. Yeah, I was there today, and I
Yeah,
know
there's-
it gets a little tight, but okay.
there's gonna be a lag between the call and,
Yeah, hopefully they clear it out.
right,
It would be ideal that we would have time, but if we didn't, there is plenty of space between the car on the right-hand side and the egress area for emergency vehicles to get through.
okay, let's keep moving. Jim, do you have any questions relative to this thing?
I do not.
Okay, let's go back to the matrix. Now we're up to 6. Everyone's okay with the parking that we just went through in
Yes.
number 4, or number 5?
So 6 is the annual event down on the farm.
So
And
down from you, it's,
that was never in the original permit, and we have
That's fine.
chosen to add it because it is its own animal.
it's a standalone thing.
But let me interject. It's always been held.
It has always been held. It would have probably been one of those original events that they say is 250 people or so.
Then that's in conjunction with Parks and Rec, though, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So it's like a Highlands Farm or a Wheat Beach, okay. 7,
Wait, no, we gotta talk about that.
So how many parking spots in total or at Cherry Lawn?
In total, at Cherry Lawn, the defined parking spots, there are
87 plus 27 is 114.
114.
114 spots?
So where does everyone else park?
see,
So
For down on the farm.
for down on the farm?
Yeah, I'm only on 7.
Right. So on the grassy areas between Brookside and the Nature Center
Mm-hmm.
is where tons of people are able to park.
How many spots do you create for this event?
That's what we were talking about with the police today. So the police believe that we can safely have, if you were driving into Cherry Lawn Park, that we can safely have at least 100 spots on the right and 75 on the left. 175 spots between the 2 lawns on either side of Cherry Lawn.
So when you first drive into Cherry Lawn from Brookside, the
Going-
left and the right grassy areas.
The dog, the
The off-
leash-free dog area. right
Okay,
now.
and 175 cumulative, or, can you say that again?
100 to the right,
Okay.
the larger area.
Yep.
And 75 to the left.
So 175, okay.
Yeah,
Plus the 114.
Correct.
Okay, so 280.
Now, the police department, me personally, I'm not super worried about this one because it's a police department. I look at it as lights at high school. Right, those guys figure it out, all right? But relative to this event, has the police department always been involved planning it, and Parks and Rec always been involved planning it?
to my knowledge,
Is
you
that a new
have
phenomenon?
known about the event.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Has Park
Has
and
the
Rec
police
always been
department
involved?
has the police department and Parks and Rec always been involved in co-hosting this event?
No, not co-hosting.
We don't code.
It's not
Okay.
co-hosting. We are
Okay.
hosting the event. The police serve for the safety, and yes, they have always been involved in the event. As
Because
long as
they've
I can
attended.
remember.
One at a
and-
time.
And back.
Say that,
And-
say that again.
The police have always been involved and will
Great.
continue to be involved.
Great.
And it has always been held at the park.
We've always had a police presence at that event, not only in the preparation for the event, but the Darien Police Department has been physically present at our event.
So I know you have a quote, and it appears that you had a conversation earlier today with representatives from the Darien Police Department, which seems to be a little bit, not contrary to the email from Dan Anderson, dated September 20th, 2019, regarding this issue. So rather than having the record be unclear, there seems to be Dan Anderson says something that's a little bit different than the quote you read today.
That is correct.
Which is not documented anywhere, and I'm not saying it's not true. I just want the record to be clear. So the email that we have in the record from Dan Anderson, dated September 20th, 2019, appears that he is concerned that with parking, that parking was inadequate, it was a traffic issue, and that there was inadequate staffing, not on your behalf, but meaning it appears, if I'm reading this correctly, that there was budgetary reasons where more police could have been hired to staff traffic or, direct traffic. I'm not really clear, but that appears to be what he's saying, and that the police had to utilize nature center staffers or the general public to assist with traffic and parking. And I can understand where that, from a safety and neighborhood issue, is not really sufficient, and for an event this large, is not sustainable ongoing. You've talked about a discussion you've had earlier today with police that seems to be a bit different, where they seem to think that there's parking that can happen in other areas. So it seems like there's an ongoing dialogue going on early in advance of the event. So maybe you could talk about sort of the difference in what we have in the record as opposed to what you've discussed and verbally put on the record.
Right. We had
Is
a
that-
unique event.
Just tell me 1 second. Is the quote you read from
Captain Marin.
right, is that an email that you can put from somebody?
Oh, it is?
I can, yeah, it's an
So
email.
give it to,
Oh, great.
make a copy, give it
Okay.
to Jeremy, it's in file.
Okay. We had a unique event at this year's Down on the Farm, which was different than past years. In the past years, we've had 3 police present, and we've had a professional parking service with 2 or 3 attendants. It has varied, okay, but let's talk a minimum of 2 attendants, and it has worked well. This year, we arrived at the park, and there were soccer games happening at the park at the same time. So there were a lot of cars that were already parked there that we weren't expecting to be managing. It added another level to the complication of people coming and going just as the party was beginning and then afterwards. So what Captain Marin was saying today was that withholding that, if we can be sure that the park is secured without games for that day, that will, he said, represent about 80% of the problem, will get better. So that was unique this past year.
That's what I
It
get
wasn't
that.
that we didn't want to hire more policemen.
Okay.
It's that in the past it had worked well.
Okay.
So now, even though we know we can have no soccer games next year, we want to have more police there, and we want to have a public, private parking company help.
Why do you know
So
you
that-
can have no soccer games there?
Because we'll work with Park and Recs. In the past, there were never soccer games. It was a fluke this year. it happened that maybe there wasn't a communication.
Communication issue.
So what time do we need to communicate? Because I'd like, just like the other one, what date are the soccer games set? And what date can you apply for the parking so that this doesn't happen again?
I'll find out.
Okay, cool.
Because you already have the date for next year's?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can tell Parks and Rec, this date, can we have it? Parks and Rec's gonna tell Soccer Association, you can't have anything there.
Yep,
So you can figure that out tomorrow.
exactly.
Okay. Any other questions on this one major event? And you only want one of these things, right?
We only do. We only do.
Okay. So we're going back to the matrix. Now we're up to number 7.
Number 7 has to do with the number of children who can attend, I'm sorry, it actually has to do with the amount of time for birthday parties. And we are seeking to include Sunday mornings in the permit.
So we, are 7 and 8 tied together?
Yes.
So
8
it's seven-
includes the number of children who can come to a birthday party.
Right, 7 is Saturdays and Sundays, and we might be changing the time a little bit. And 8 is going to the classroom size, so Johnny can invite his entire class to his birthday party.
Unless Johnny's in the twos program, in which case all the parents are coming and you will not have enough parking.
So what we do in that case, we recommend no more than 12 twos
It's not-
because the quality of the program goes down and parents find
You know,
relief
kids don't
in that.
remember it that
Great.
age anyhow.
I mean,
Did my
Oh,
kid
this-
go to birthday parties when he was 2?
No.
I didn't think so. He's at home.
Mine did.
just because it's Sunday mornings, I'm just gonna ask, do neighbors have they voiced any complaints?
Oh,
You know,
they'll get to you.
Sundays, let it be a little less traffic, a peaceful time, I don't know. Are they concerned about having birthday parties on Sunday mornings?
We have not been made aware of any concern of any of our neighbors in the past 3 years that I've been there who might be
And-
concerned about that.
So, just like Mr. Rand talked about, I don't want to I'm coming from a view of, 2000 is how it's been.
Yeah.
And now I'm recognizing
Right.
it's not how it's been. So rather than me keep referring back to the 2000 permit, have there already been parties on Sunday mornings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And there's
And-
been no complaints
No
from neighbors?
complaints.
And I think Sunday mornings, the park is already pretty heavily used by families throughout the town, so the traffic pattern of like an increase of, 10 cars at any moment isn't really affecting neighborhood noticeability, just because the park is used for tennis and playground and, so continuously.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's 7 and 8. Now we're up to 9 on the matrix. And
Which is the addition of those final few lines.
so let's just, okay,
But we
so
do
7
request you to take the edit into account on the matrix.
We will. Hold on one second. So I'm just going to backtrack. 31 to 35 on your legal line that Kara likes so much. That's down on the farm, right? 36 to 38 equals 7 and 8, right? Okay. And now we're up to 7. Now we're up to 39 to the end. Right?
41 is the addition, yeah, is where the addition begins.
It's 39 to 41.
Line 41 is where the addition of these,
That's perfect.
Oh, okay, okay, so 38 goes to 41, got it, all right. So we're back into matrix, now we're up to number 9, right?
and the
Is-
adjustments on the, sorry.
Go ahead.
The adjustments on the matrix would be drawing lines through 3 things on it. Under the 2019 list, we're removing the Saturday 10/19 Darien Nature Center party. That actually falls under one of the parties, the earlier piece. That was my
Got it.
mistake. Under 2018, under Saturday 10/20 from 6 to 10, that is that same party the year prior. Again, my mistake for including it there. And then the notes here, one of the events is hosted by the Nature Center. That is, again, that reflects those parties. That was my mistake. So that goes.
Okay, so you had 3 events in 19, you had, 7 outside events in 18, and now you're asking for 5.
Yeah.
And this is within the mission of the Nature Center.
Well, we feel as though we are serving the community by offering our building to organizations for rental. Organizations that, like the powerboat, that deal with outside stuff, or a memorial service. So we don't want to have 10 because it distracts from what we do. But we feel as though we can be available for 5 if it's right.
Preschool families have typically used the event for like their annual fundraiser in the past. That's been, I attended when I was a Holly Pond mother at the YMCA. That was one of our venues.
The Holly Ponds party, was that, Holly Ponds fundraiser, was that,
Before the YMCA was renovated, yes.
Yeah.
so that's the one that's,
No,
Darien
that was
YMCA?
in the year 2011,
okay.
so it's not
Because
mentioned
the
here.
Darien YMCA was there again, and
They were.
They were in
20-foot
2018. We did have several parent groups there in 2018. Again, it was a distraction for us, and it is not something that we are promoting actively.
Okay. I like this, John. Okay. Any questions from the commission?
Yes. So you have 114 spots, so you will make sure, have you ever had the need for more than 114 spots? Now we have Uber, you have 2 people that might buy tickets together, you're okay even at 250 with 114?
Very much okay.
Okay.
Most people Uber.
So I want to make sure that the application for the spots from Parks and Recs is done before you approve a date for a party, so that there's not a soccer game and you find yourself in the same situation.
Correct.
But these
Is that okay?
The parties are evening.
But I think
Well,
what you're
there's 2 to 4
referring to is like the
memorial.
hoot and howl.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
like a
yes, we
memorial
will.
hoot and howl, just that
Yep.
Parks and Recs knows in advance. So
Down in the
there's
park.
yeah, just the same across the board.
It makes very good sense, and it would be a new practice that we would be we would giving that much notice, and it makes very good sense for us to do that. Thank you.
So you have to have the permission of your landlord to use their parking spaces
That's correct.
for any of these 5 parties?
That is correct.
Okay. You guys good? You
Yes.
done? You presented? I'd like to see if Pam or Laura Bora would like to speak at all. Laura, you send in a letter, and Pam, you're the landlord. Okay. Now, where is, did I put you on the spot, Laura? I mean, you sent in a letter.
It's fine, I have the, I don't have it in front of me, but I pretty much remember what it
I'm
said.
trying to find it.
Lorraine Bora, I'm chairman of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Is it Laura or Laura?
O-R-A.
Do you go by Laura or Lauren?
I go by Lori, but it's officially Lorraine.
Okay.
Oh, there's my letter. Look at there, there's my letter. In big
And
print.
can you bear with me 1 second? Here's your letter. No, it's not. Here's your letter?
Sure.
Okay. Okay,
See, in big font.
you represent the landlord. These guys are your
Represent the
tenant.
landlord.
What's your view on it? We read your letter.
Well, our view is very similar to Reddit, but I will repeat. The Nature Center did meet with the commission both at our September and our October meetings. And the sense of the meeting was that the Parks and Recreation Commission is very supportive of the Nature Center. We view them as a partner, and we want them to be successful and run programs that benefit the children of Darien. Our concerns, however, centered around the increasing intensity of use of Cherry Lawn Park, which we continue to hear about. We have had some spotty level of complaints over the last few years about traffic concerns and lack of parking and whatever. I know Jamie Stevenson fielded at least one complaint this summer about just the intensity of the use of the park. So that's really where our primary concern lies. As I noted in the letter, which was the sense of the meeting from the commission, we have tennis courts, we're getting increased demand for pickleball, we have the community gardens, we have a soccer field, we have the fishing pond, what am I forgetting? We have the playground, which is very active, and the baseball field. So it is a very, very active park with a lot going on.
And a basketball court.
And the basketball court that's not currently in commission, but that we do hope in the near future to get that working again. So there's just a lot going on in the park. So the intensity of use and the traffic, and of course, this is the only park in town where there's off-leash dog availability. So we do have a lot of dog parks. There's just a lot going on there. So the intensity of the use was really the concern. And then the commission did finish a master plan for all of our parks in early 2018. And it's intended to be at least a 10-year plan where we have different concepts for each of the parks. At this particular point in time, we are not focused as a commission on Cherry Lawn. We're focusing on some other matters, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Really?
And so we don't really intend to take Cherry Lawn up at this point. So the secondary concern really is to the extent and when we get to Cherry Lawn, which my personal view is would probably be a priority park for us to really get to and think about next. But that would be the entire commission's decision. To the extent that we wanted to act on some of the other aspects of the master plan, that it could end up being in conflict with giving the permit of the more intensity of use to the nature center. And it's something we just can't really get our arms around right now.
Okay.
So that's why our hope was that perhaps, at the risk of kind of kicking the can down the road, that if we know we won't really be able to address any enhancements to Cherry Lawn for a few years, that given that the Nature Center has effectively been operating in this manner for a few years, that we could work with them, but kind of reserve our rights to further determine how we might view that park in the future.
So in your master plan and your rough timing, you think it's 2 years out that you're gonna get to this park, 3 years out?
I would say 2 to 3, just based on what we have on our plate right now. The commission certainly has limited capacity. Our park staff, and Pam in particular, has limited capacity into how many projects they can really actively manage and just keep the business of the parks department going, maintaining the parks. They run hundreds of programs, et cetera. I mean, they're a small staff, so.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't necessarily want this to be into perpetuity? That's gonna go on forever in case
At this
you-
time, that would ideally be our request, is that the permit could be approved for perhaps 2 years, and then it would revert absent further discussion.
Okay.
They're serving the community. They have been serving the community. I heard you say you have no timeline. There's limited staffing. You have a full plate. And they're currently serving Darien families
You understand?
and the community at large. And so I'm just struggling with why that's an issue when there's no immediate plans and this park is not in your priority. And I heard you say that you have limited capacity and no timeline to, while you have a master plan, it's not immediately in the prioritization, and that you have limited capacity. So I'm struggling to understand what the issue is.
I'm not sure, let me try. As I understand it, if the special permit is approved in perpetuity, and then, I mean, the permit's increased and it's a forever document, if that's the approval that you give to them, to the extent that the Parks and Recreation Commission in 2 years or whatever decides, we want to implement parts of our master plan, we may have limited what we are able to do. But
The way
the
we
fact
look
that
at
I
it-
can't get to it
Hold on,
right
hold on,
now.
The way we've done it in the past, Kara, is, like, for argument's sake, the YMCA, they put together a schedule every single year of what they're gonna do, right? So we looked at it for 5 years in a row and said, if there was any complaint in the 5 years, then you can do it. Lights at the high school, temporary lights, you look at it every single, so it's kind of automatically renewed, hold on.
Yeah.
It's kind of automatically renewed, but it's their park, right? It's Park and Rec's park.
It's our park.
It's not the Nature Center's park. Park and Rec, Nature Center leases a portion of the park, which is that building and the 25 parking spaces.
So,
Yeah, under the town charter, the Parks and Recreation Commission has the sole authority over the park.
Correct.
So the commission's concern was something that in a very short time frame, we became aware of this. We became aware of it after the Nature Center had applied to you. And Jeremy said, by the way, maybe you want to talk to the Parks and Recreation Commission. So we have attempted to react and be very responsive very quickly to their request. But I don't feel that the commission should be criticized for the fact that we didn't make Cherry Lawn a priority.
I'm not
at this
criticizing.
moment. It kind of felt that way.
Oh, no, I'm not criticizing. I'm
Okay,
trying to
it kind of felt
understand,
that way.
because I think it's been established that while the permit in 2000, almost 20 years ago, specified certain things, they've been operating and serving the community sort of openly and, not hiding, in a certain way.
Right.
And they're now trying to become more honest, as we, and trying to, remedy and, address a permit issue. So I don't think it was, I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to understand, the reluctance and figure out,
Well,
where
here's an
there seems to be a
example, and it's
reluctance.
a topic I frankly like to bring up least, but I will bring it up, is our master plan identifies 2 sites in the town parks where a town pool would be best suited. And one of those 2 is Cherry Lawn. So if the commission were to decide to revisit that topic in the near future, and it was concluded that Cherry Lawn was the better place to go, and I know we're on TV, and I don't want it to get in the press that now we're talking about a pool. I'm giving an example of us needing to be true to the master plan, which the town spent a lot of money on, and there was a lot of effort put in to put it together. So now we have these 2 locations. The other one is Weed Beach. We barked up that tree a few years ago. There were concerns about the location due to rising sea level, et cetera. So, for instance, if at some point the commission said, there is now an appetite in this town to build a town pool, and this is the place, if this special permit has been approved, have we prohibited ourselves as a commission from pursuing that? Those are the types of things we as a commission are thinking about.
And
So
that
can I
means the
just ask a
parking lot
question?
here
So-
could go away.
So, I'm gonna kind of just break it down. So are you concerned when they have 24 students or are you concerned about anything being able to be done in that building, ever? Or is it that when it's more than 24, like for instance, when you need that overflow, is that specifically what you're talking about?
For instance, I can't say now, I mean, the whole discussion about now giving them approval to use the overflow parking. I frankly think that's something the commission hasn't really talked about specifically. Do we feel comfortable telling them every summer we're allowing them to use the overflow parking? If we're really saying, if we look at it and say, gee, we're getting complaints that all the mothers who want to use the playground can't park, or the gardeners are telling us they can't park, we need to really understand that.
So the 24 or less, where they have those 25 spots, that you're not talking about those. It's really in the instances where they're using the overflow. I would just want to be crystal clear.
Correct.
Okay.
And it also, to me, it also has to do with in and out traffic. That's the big thing, is in and out traffic. Jim was patiently waiting.
I have a question or a comment to make, but I want to ask Jeremy something. The permit they have, is it in perpetuity?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Nature Center as it exists or has been operated up until some years ago, before they started, the program got bigger and bigger, that's already been,
Understood.
I don't want to say taken away from, but that's already been carved out.
That's understood, yes.
I mean, I confess to being very sympathetic to the Nature Center. I got 7 grandchildren who live in
Yes.
town.
And we
they
are
all like it.
sympathetic to the Nature Center as well, but we do feel as the custodians of the
But
park.
on the other hand, the
know.
Parks and Rec are the own it.
They own it.
And I don't think that it's for this commission to turn around and say, and constrain how another commission exercises its responsibilities toward the town, toward the community. I mean, this is their deal.
Yes, they've been doing it.
But we already have a special use permit that P and Z for us gave them, which includes 48 as the maximum. An event was not singled out, yeah, so 48 is the maximum, which quite frankly, if we did nothing, they could have 48
Yeah, no,
and
we
those
understand
25
that.
spots forever, and
Yeah,
you
we
guys
understand
would.
that.
Okay. Because I'm so confused,
No, we
just for a
totally
second, you're
understand
not, is part of the master plan taking down the, like, that nature center spot? Because I didn't see that.
No, no,
Okay.
no, no, no. I'm just
Okay.
saying to the extent
I
that
just want to make sure.
we
Right.
want to
Use the
develop
other.
the park in other ways, or reorganize the park
Right.
in different ways, and what those impacts might be.
Okay.
Just quickly,
Of course you can.
the lawyer in me begs me to ask, do you have a written agreement, a lease sort of arrangement between the Park and Rec and the Nature Center?
I don't know the answer to that
No, the
question.
lease is with the Board of Selectmen. The
Oh.
Nature Center, when they built the building, leased a certain area of land
Oh,
from the Board of Selectmen,
okay.
and that went part and parcel with the special permit, but the lease is with the Board of Selectmen.
I see.
For how long?
Oh, I think it was 99 years, so you got another
Okay. Until when?
79 years to run.
I'm just wondering, do you think you have the ability to restrain the Nature Center from doing something even if we, as P and Z, say they could do it?
They can, yeah.
I'm not a lawyer,
It's
so
got to
I
be
don't know.
improved by then.
I think that's one of the
Of course,
questions
gray
is,
area, right?
when Layla said to the commission, we would go to Park and Rec to, like they did this year, to say at the start of the year, look, we want to use these overflow spaces 7 weeks, Monday through Friday, in the summer, these 26 spaces. Pam, who would process that request, would be saying, well, do you have permission from P and Z to run a camp of this size? Have they allowed you to do this as a possibility? And then you're right, George, one of the questions for Pam and the Park and Rec Commission is, even if the Planning and Zoning were to say yes, does Park and Rec then have the right to say, no, we don't want to lease it because it could, as Ms. Boras said, it could impact other uses within the park. So for example, if there was a big soccer tournament or something for a week during the summer, they might say, geez, Layla, that's not going to work for us. We've already booked a soccer tournament. Or the gardeners, every week, Memorial Day is a big week for, or whatever it is.
Okay. That would apply to
That's-
the overflow parking
That's the
issue.
overflow park.
But the number of kids in a program probably would not be impacted by what Park and Rec said.
Correct. The planning and zoning would impact the birthday parties, hours of operation, those parameters. But really, the commission can also talk about, as Layla mentioned, if for some reason Park and Rec says, no, on certain days and times you can't use the overflow, Layla could then say, well, P and Z's allowing me this much usage, I will have to find an alternative, whether it's parking at a school, or
Right, which I
parking
think
at a church, or something where the commission, Park and Rec Commission, could say, no, during these certain days and times, either someone else has already booked it, or we need it for one of our programs, or down the road, they might say, you know what, we want to run a new driveway through this area, or enhanced basketball courts, which they, or whatever it might be,
I'm gonna-
horseshoes, bocce, whatever it might be. Who knows at this time? And so that is where we are, is Layla is at the mercy of both the Park and Rec Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission in terms of parking in areas other than their specific lot and programs and operations subject to the special permit.
Good, thanks.
Anything else? Any questions for Laura?
No.
Okay. I just want to go over one thing. I'm just,
Can we let?
I would add one thing.
sure, go ahead, Pam. Just state your name.
Pam Gary, Director of Parks and Rec. Also in the master park plan, we're talking about how we're concerned about the entrance to the park and the egress to the park. So I just want to mention to some of the commission members, we're having a hard time saying, well, what happens if our park just, like next year, becomes very busy? It's unpredictable. So I think that, I just wanted to mention on record that that's something we're very concerned about as well. It's not simply just the parking, it's about getting in and out and how busy the park could be on certain days. So it'd be hard for us, I mean, I I think it would be great to be able to, and we'll work together well anyway, as it is, but I do like what I'm hearing here too, that it's between both commissions and the Park and Rec Department, where we would have to have a sit down with Leila and say, hey, something's not working here, we either need to stop something or adjust some things.
Can we look at this for a second while you're saying it and you brought this up? Relative to this,
I mean,
Which number is it? I'll get it.
number 3,
I guess,
hold on one second. Okay. So Brookside is at the top of the page,
Right.
right? Brookside is off the page to the top. So if you're talking about another driveway, would it come off of Brookside and then take a left over this 27 parking
Our
lot?
park master plan has an egress going out, possibly behind the overflow parking lot, out to Brookside there.
Can you just point to it on here?
It would be over here. So,
Maybe
again,
baseball bat.
we haven't put anything in any type of
Yeah, I'm
capital
just trying
improvement
to,
plan.
but there's more property over there.
But it's
Like
been
this
discussed.
diagram-
let her talk,
Yeah, it's
please.
been discussed that you could come through here up into the overflow parking lot, and then this is all our grassy area up here, as long as the grassy area over here with the dog, off dog leashes, so that perhaps a driveway could be put out there to go out. And Leila and I have talked about that. We've also talked about, is there, a possibility of another drive near the nature center out to Brookside?
Because I'm just trying to manage the choke point a little bit. The choke point is at where that little man's standing.
Right, well, right, and it, as we knew this summer, it
Right,
was tough.
that's where the choke point is.
Mhm.
None of this is-
So if we
Because
can
as
get
people
away
are
from
coming
that.
out here,
Correct.
and it's at that direct time where she has it, although they're saying they have the counselors stopping traffic, it's a bottleneck.
Right.
And it's not just even with Nature Center, it's with the
It's
park.
everybody else.
So even if it had nothing to do with her, we've had those problems as well, with soccer, people not parking where they're supposed to park, they're lined up on the side.
Fishing piers, dog walkers,
Yeah.
people playing on the baseball
So
field.
regardless of any programming, it's the nature of the park that is having, when it's really busy, I think our commission really needs to have a good discussion about how we safely get people in and out of that park.
Okay. You good?
I'm good.
Okay. I want to just check one thing here. I'm looking at the special permit, and Jeremy, can you help me with this? Page 4, item F, in the special permit. Where I'm going is, it talks about having
Hold on, which special permit are we on?
2000 special permit, existing permit,
Existing permit, okay.
page 4, item F. Yep. That talks, the second half of the paragraph talks about birthday parties on Sundays. So part of their proposal is to add birthday parties on Sundays. I read this over the weekend. I'm looking at this, and it says they already have birthday parties are allowed on Sundays.
Mornings, they're asking for
Sunday
mornings.
mornings.
We were talking
That's
about this.
afternoon.
Right. Okay, so there, you have birthday parties on Sunday, you want them morning and afternoon. Got it. So that is a change.
No, they've been doing that already, but it is a change, but
It's
they.
illegal. I get they've been doing it, but it's illegal. It's not in conjunction with this. They're asking for something, for afternoon birthday parties.
Right, but much of what they're doing is already in contrary to their original permit,
Understand.
and they've been
I
doing
get
it.
I get it.
But I think we already, that was,
I just
Been
saw
on
on
the
here that
record
it's
already.
Sundays, and I didn't know it was, I thought Sundays was never a birthday party. But it already is there. Okay. You guys are all good.
Could I just say one quick thing?
Of course you can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, truly, we were unaware that we were operating outside of a permit because we didn't know it existed. And so I want to say that as an apology to everyone, because Jeremy told me one day, and it was great to know, and 2 days later, I was submitting our application to planning and zoning, which is why it wasn't something that we were hiding from anyone. We just responded so that we could get on the agenda. So the speed and stuff is not in any way meant to, we are
That's
not
okay.
meaning in any way to,
They-
we
they
really
trust me.
want to do the right thing.
There's a lot of people that come in after the fact.
Okay.
Trust me. Some guys rectify and go back, some guys ask for permission to go forward. That's why I asked you for this stuff 5 years back, because you said at one point in time that your numbers were very low before quote unquote, you got involved. And that's where it was, and that might only be 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever it is. Okay, you good? I want to open it up to the public since they're here, and then I'm saying we extend this for another week because there's more stuff to add on.
I don't want to extend it, but would it be reasonable if Rachel had an opportunity to address the 2-year issue? I don't think
Who's
we've heard.
Rachel?
The
Okay.
president of the board. I don't think we've heard from the Nature Center on that issue,
Sure.
the 2-year issue.
What, the 2-year issue, Rob?
That they would be.
How
Instead of
long the
perpetuity.
permit?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I was unclear. I think the difficulty for us in having a 2-year term for the permit application now is that we are revisiting our budget, and we have, we really are a non-for-profit, so, have a zero budget at the end of the year, so we start looking at these things in August. So there was at one point in the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting last month, talking about doing it 1 year, but we'd be back in front of them in basically April, which is not very far in the future. So we're wondering, with a lot of things that are subjective, like when we will have enough money to pay for a parking study, when there will be enough aptitude to do things within the budget that would be required to look at these different things, we're a little bit handcuffed as a charity to determine where we should go going forward. That said, I understand, I was, born and raised in this town and went to the high school. I don't want to hamstring anyone to be committed to this in perpetuity when there might be different goals for the town going forward, which is why I tried to highlight the fact that the parking issue is really, I think the heart of the issue for Parks and Recreation, our overflow parking, and why I wanted to say that that's not addressed in our permit application. And if we can't have overflow parking, we will have to come up with some other way to run the camp and school programs. We'll have to limit our numbers to be able to use the parking that we have within our facility, stagger the opening and closing times of our program to allow every parent to park at differing times. We'll have to adjust if we're not granted the overflow parking. So that's why I wanted to say it still really is within the Parks and Recreation Commission's control on a year-to-year basis to grant us the overflow parking or not.
But part of the issue that I see is not necessarily where those extra cars are gonna park. It's the traffic coming in and out. I mean, in Middlesex Club does year to year, YMCA did year to year, the lights at the high school do year to year. Boy Scouts was a 2-year approval. It's not like something that we normally do. It's not something that we've never, the 2-year permit it has been done before. Because if it doesn't work out, a year later, we're not taking away 48, right? That's there, right? So you can go back to 48. You might have been 48 4 years ago, before Layla came on board. She doesn't know. We don't know yet. We haven't seen that number. So it's not like we're shutting you down. We're not doing anything at this point. You're at 48. You're asking for 85. There's more traffic. There's more cars coming in and out. Where the cars parked doesn't matter.
They've already been at 85 and 75.
They were 85 for 1 week of
But
1
they've been
year.
75, and it's a multi-use park, so I think the egress, the traffic issue and the entering and exiting is not solely on the Darien Nature Center.
Correct.
But it's because it's a multi-use park. So I think while it's a completely valid and important issue that needs to be addressed, I don't know if this applicant is the party to whom that issue should be addressed. I could be wrong, though.
I agree. There's no, I don't
I mean, I could
understand
be way off.
Especially if our master plan
But
has
we talked
nothing
about
to do with
soccer,
it.
we talked about gardening, we talked about dog park people, we talked about all these trails. I don't know if they're, is it,
We can debate that. We can debate
I don't know, I'm
that.
not debating, but I
At the
think
deliberation, we can
Parks
talk
and
about
Rec.
it.
it's a Parks and Recs issue, and that should be the applicant addressing additional curb cuts and additional entrances and exits. I don't think they have the power nor the ability to address that issue. Do you? Right, they're a tenant.
If they're asking for a special.
do they have the-
Hold on. If they're asking for a special use permit, one of our,
To amend it.
yeah, it happens, that's why they're up to number F. That's where, or D. But they're asking for a special, we have the ability to ask for a parking study. They don't have a parking study.
We're
So they aren't the only ones
Right.
using it. That's the point.
Understood,
Right.
but
So
that's,
why are they paying for something that they're not
It's a
still using?
nonprofit.
Doesn't make sense. They're
It
doing a
happened-
service with the community, they're a nonprofit. And the master plan has nothing to do with them or operating in a large capacity. This is for our use as a town. I don't understand why they would be paying for it. I'm just putting that on record. Doesn't make sense.
okay, you good? Thank you. Would anybody in the public like to speak to this application? Wow, that is shocking.
I will.
Yes,
Sorry. Just quickly. Hi, Rachel Taylor. I'm a board member at the Nature Center.
I didn't get your name.
Rachel Taylor.
Thank you.
I'm a board member for 3 years now at the Nature Center. My kids have gone through all the programming since they were 2 over the last 5 years. It's a really special place to the community. Lots of people that first move into town, it's the first place they really get exposed to when their kids are so young. There really isn't, even now, much programming that's aimed at kids that are 2 and under, and the Nature Center does service some of our youngest families. Darien is demographically one of the youngest towns, if not the youngest, in the state of Connecticut. And we are growing, against all odds, we are growing. And I just would like to highlight the fact that it's already been kind of pointed out, but maybe we'll put a finer point on it, that I don't know if the authority exists or if it's even right for the Parks and Recs Commission to hold us hostage for what really is a global parking issue. And to that end, I would just ask that you allow us to move forward and to set our budget and to continue to service the community in the manner that we have been doing for the last 3 to 5 years that I can speak to. So thank you for hearing me out, and I appreciate your time.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to keep the hearing open to get the other information, just for the numbers. Please.
Hi, Vicki Campbell. I'm the finance director at the Nature Center, also a teacher, and 2 summers ago, the assistant camp director.
Fantastic.
I have been this little man.
Yeah. Wear a yellow jacket and a hat?
I do. I've
Cool.
been that little man quite a few times. And having been there, this person serves a very important position. But honestly, what I do most of is directing these traffic cars out so that they can see past the line of traffic. But rarely, if I'm standing here and I have the park traffic coming towards me that are at the playground or at the garden, if there was one car an afternoon, maybe I would direct them along. But for the most part, I was making sure that our camp parents that were leaving were able to get around this turn safely. So I feel like there's a lot of things, I mean, there's days in the afternoon when I leave on a regular basis and soccer is parked all along here and I can't get out for my job. I find that difficult. Or when Woodward bus is leaving the other day, I couldn't get out of here to leave because the line of traffic and the bus was going. And there was no one directing me out and I couldn't see past. So I feel that we do an excellent job in making sure that everyone's safe, and I do park in the overflow parking lot during the summer. I park here during the regular times. I actually transport 2 counselors with me.
That's my point earlier.
I feel that there's a lot of pieces you're missing. And as the financial director, I really need to start getting the budget set and working on things because we don't know where we're going from here.
Right, because you're going to send out your blast and start inviting people in, I think you said January or February.
January.
Yeah,
And then it's a plan.
I got it.
Thank you.
That's what we're hearing.
If we hold it over, whatever you said,
Keep it open.
do we want to give them a list of what it was we want to see in addition to what we've seen tonight so that
Right.
we can,
It's what I'm looking for is the historical information on attendance. If you can break down 2017, 18, and 19, by week where you had 85 campers and 75
Is
campers?
this specific to the summer?
Right, me personally, and everyone can speak for themselves, my big concern is the camp. Going from 48 to 85.
I want to know dates for the parking permits. Verify the number of spots that the police commission has said you have available. The number of staff, you've spoken to staff numbers.
For overflow, specific to overflow?
I think in general,
But what, no, it's not specific to
the parties,
the
events.
down on the farm.
Yeah, so definitely want the events. When do you
Big
apply
events.
for parking? When can they approve it? How quickly they should do it? Because obviously Parks needs to have parameters around them. So if you apply for a permit within 7 days, they should tell you yay or nay. So they're both, there needs to be good communication because you'll be in a situation.
And that would apply for camps as well.
Hold on one second.
Right.
Our permits have to be 2 weeks in advance.
Oh, so that's
So it
fine.
could never be that quick.
So, but whatever it is, that's written down so that you can't, everyone's accountable, right? So if it's 2 weeks, then in 2 weeks you're giving them an answer, and then you can make your plan. You need to be able to properly plan. So that's for events, that's for down on the farm,
Camp.
and camp.
Okay. All those in favor of keeping this thing open? Any question? Okay.
Wait, Jeremy?
Jeremy, when do you get turn it to?
Oh, the email. The email, the newer email from.
Yeah, we have that
It's already
in
in the
the file.
file.
I'll copy it for the.
Oh,
commission.
perfect, thank you.
We're looking to give Layla a little time to work on this. Tuesday, November 19th. That meeting will be 8 PM. We believe it's in room 119 of Town Hall. That's Tuesday, November 19th.
So to the Nature Center people, if you can get that stuff in that we're looking for, so we can look at it in advance.
I could get it to you tomorrow, and if
Tuesday,
we could
November
see it
19th.
any earlier than that, it would be great, because then again, our budget.
Tuesday, November 19th.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for everyone on that. 2 hours, I think we did okay.
Delicious.
It's an important one.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have special permit for Grieb's Pharmacy. Want to read it, John?
Okay, continuation of public hearing regarding special permit application number 309, Grieb's Pharmacy, 1021 Boston Post Road. Proposal to install a 4-seat coffee counter for the purpose of serving baked goods and drinks. The subject property is located on the northwest side of Boston Post Road, approximately 60 feet southwest of its intersection with Bay Street. And as shown on Assessor's Map number 73 is lot number 14 in the CBD zone.
Good evening. Well, this, Jeremy, like, just tell me, this to me is you're putting in an ice cream stand inside an existing pharmacy that
You
probably
may-
was there 50 years ago.
Right, David Genovese is here on behalf of, David's the property owner, he's here to assist the applicant. There used to be a soda fountain inside Grieb's 50, 60 years ago. So to keep up with the times, they'd like to take a very small portion of the front left of their interior to put in a small area where someone can sit down and get a coffee or espresso or a drink, cold drink, and Danish pastry, brownie, cookie.
We got it.
something like that.
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free, healthy food. But,
I want fountains.
well, that may come in the future, but
Oh.
for the time being, that's what they're looking at. No change to the outside, no change to the operation, no change to the hours. It's basically taking a small portion of what is now retail and changing it to a soda fountain.
No change in staffing.
Yeah.
I'm David Genovese on behalf of the property owner. The property owner is actually a joint venture between my company and the Hibben family of Grieb's, the owners of Grieb's, which has been in operation since 1947 in Darien, kind of an iconic business. I have a 400-page PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, of course.
But Jeremy has discouraged me from
Send
sharing
that
that
into the
tonight.
file. and
It's
if
a
you-
pleasure to be the shortest
If
presentation
you need
of
more
the
than
night.
45 seconds, you're talking too much.
Yep. With me tonight, Debbie Hibben, Charlie Hibben, Danny LeBlanc, and Fritz Nipschild of Chalkapology, the team. We can answer any questions you have.
Oh, cool.
There's no change in staff. It really is reactivating an old use, a former use of the site. And most importantly, I just wanted to share with you a nugget of trivia, of Darien trivia that I discovered, which
You're up to
Debbie shared
35
with me.
seconds, buddy.
The counter at the Sugar Bowl and the stools of the Sugar Bowl were originally at Grieb's Pharmacy.
That's so no way.
And they were green.
So you're taking them
Grieb's
back.
green. So that's really it. It's relatively straightforward. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. But
One quick question. You said there's no change in staff, so that means there's no change in parking.
correct.
Okay.
And the idea is that just while someone's waiting for a script, they'll have the opportunity to try a coffee. Charlie Hibben is making these cool chaga tea drinks, and
Is that what he has?
Let's start on this side. Any questions for the applicant?
No questions.
1, 2, George?
What happened to the soda fountain from Gilbert's Pharmacy?
What's Gilbert's?
You good, Jen?
Yeah.
Anyone in the audience like to speak to this application? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close.
Move to close this application.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Seconded.
it's a record.
Yep.
It's for you
Gotcha.
to count. We're grateful to you.
Number, third on our agenda.
Did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, he seconded.
I can't, I don't know if I can or not.
Yeah, I don't think you can, but.
Whatever Bonnie
No, I don't think
says.
he is.
All right, so actually, in order to be proper, should we
Yes,
redo the
we should.
vote? We're not certain that you should have seconded.
I don't think I can second.
Right, so can we redo? Jim, can you just,
Jim motioned.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
It's the lawyer in it. We got 2 lawyers now. The next one on our agenda is 19 Old Kings Highway. These guys were here once before about the upper deck. Jennifer?
Okay, sorry, I'm excited about chocolate. Okay, continuation of public hearing regarding amendment to business site plan application number 162, special permit, the Everwell, 19 Old Kings Highway South, proposal to create an open-air roof deck to be utilized solely by members of Everwell for co-working space and so small social gatherings. The 1.78-acre subject property is situated on the east side of Old Kings Highway South, approximately 50 feet south of its intersection with Center Street. This shown on map number 38. As lot number 14, 15, and 16 in the designed office DO zone.
Okay, so this applicant, for one's refresher, came a couple weeks ago, month ago.
When the commission was discussing the policy, how do you want to treat what we're calling rooftop decks? The commission said that such will need a public hearing. We've been working closely with the applicant on scheduling, arranging the public hearing. The applicant notified the neighbors, legal notice was published in the paper. Fred and I went out to the site yesterday, 2 days ago? 2 days ago. You may recall, it's a very small area which can only be accessed through the applicant's floor area on the 3rd floor. Although the roof area is larger, they're just doing a portion of that. It's a portion not even close to the end of the roof. And it's just going to be for users who are members of the Everwell workspace.
Okay, and as part of that policy discussion, we asked future applicants to send in a site plan or a floor plan of the deck. Man, you gave us a nice application and you gave us a floor plan, exactly what we asked for. Thank you. Please introduce yourself and tell me what we're missing, if anything.
I'm Catherine Everly. I'm the architectural designer for the Everwell. And I think some of the big questions from last time were parking. So there's a page talking about the 140 existing parking spaces to this building. I also made a note that the tenant, Everwell, and the landlord, Forestone, previously agreed to 9 parking spaces for the 2,200 square foot unit. And we wouldn't be asking for additional parking spaces because conceptually we're just more space for those 22 people occupant load.
How many square feet does the tenant have inside?
2,200 square feet usable. I mean, the rentable, I think, is like 3,000, but.
Okay, so inside the application, we asked to put it here, a floor plan. If you guys look at this, A103 is a floor plan of the furniture and tables and whatnot. The other one I think was great inside this plan is, and you got 2 pages back, there's the ones with the bushes that's superimposed. Solid effects wood bushes faded to show the seating behind. I think it's great. Let's start on this end again. Jim, do you have any questions for this applicant?
I do not.
Jen, George, Karen, okay?
I should, just for the record, reiterate that I am a tenant of that building and I have no parking problems, so.
And you
there are
cannot
no
use the
conflicts.
space.
Apparently I can't use the space.
Well,
So really no conflict.
Right.
Okay. Hold on half a second. I don't know where to go. Okay, what's wrong? Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this application?
I just wanted to share David Genovese, principal of Baywater 17 Old Kings Highway. We own the property next door. We've toured the Everwell twice, had some meetings there. We liked it so much, we want Catherine to help us with future projects. She's done that great of a job. Little commercial
Shocking.
for Catherine. But we're totally supportive. We think it's a great forward-looking thing, and she's really done an awesome job with the project, so.
Agreed.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I think every landlord in town is putting these things in all their office buildings and residential buildings. Anyone else hear the public from this? I entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second over here.
Thank you.
Jen motion.
Thank you.
Jim seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. You're all set. Next is Dynamic Fitness, 319 Boston Post Road. Jen, take it away.
Continuation of public hearing regarding business site plan application number 146F, special permit Dynamic Athletics, 319 Boston Post Road, proposal to create finished space in the basement and use it for personal training. The .757 acre subject property is situated on the northwest side of Boston Post Road at the northeastern corner formed by the intersection with Birch Road, and shown on assessor's map number 13 is lot number 1 and 2 in the service business SB and one family residential half-acre zone, R1 half zone.
Okay, history for everyone that was here or not here. This was a closed restaurant for years. Dynamic Fitness moved into it. We gave them a permit to go into the building and only use the first floor. Downstairs, I think, was used for something, but you were not allowed to have customers and clients down there. I think this is just an application to expand the scope of their work to be able to use downstairs for personal training.
Yep, that's correct. They
What
have
do you
a
got,
shared
Cameron?
parking agreement with the adjacent diner, which allows them to share parking when the diner is busiest, lunchtime, dinner time. Bill Gallagher is here on behalf of Dynamic Athletics, said those are his quiet times. Bill's busiest time is when many of us are sleeping. I think Bill said 5 to 7 a.m. Fred and I took a tour during the middle of the day. There was no one there, because no one's working out in the middle of the day. They're all working out early morning. So for Bill, it gives him an opportunity to build up a clientele in one-to-one training, and those folks would be downstairs, and then the classes would be on the first floor.
Question, was that parking room you just talked, that wasn't recorded, was it? That was not a signed parking
know if
agreement.
there's
Now it is.
That's correct, there is no recorded parking
Yeah.
agreement
Well,
on the land record.
Because hold on a second, because that was the Ethos, which is the Greek restaurant, and the diner was the same guy, he was parking in the same spot.
Correct, but
But we didn't,
there's still a written agreement, but it's not filed in the land records.
okay, that's fine. Sarah, go ahead. Please tell your name for the record.
Yeah, Bill Gallagher, owner of Dynamic Athletics.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Gallagher.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, kind of exactly what Jeremy said. So right now, when we originally applied, I didn't even know that, I mean, Wilder kind of did it all for me, or Mr. Gleason. I didn't really know we couldn't use the downstairs because there are already offices and things like that down there that the restaurant had. So this is basically just to be able to use that and be able to do one-on-one or two-on-one training downstairs. Our group classes are upstairs, so right now we're kind of like at 5, 6 a.m. we're almost at capacity for those classes, but when new people join or want to work out, we would like to have somewhere to work with them one-on-one. So it would just be for that type of stuff.
Okay, and then relative to Jeremy, it's a little bit outside our purview. Fire marshal's gonna sign off, access, egress, sprinklers.
Right, Bill
whatever's
would need a zoning and building permit to finish out the spaces, if P and Z were to approve this, to finish out those spaces, fire marshal, building permit,
Okay.
building official would look at all that.
Let's start on this in this time. Karen, any questions for the applicant? You all done?
Yeah.
No questions. I just thought it was important to note that you have computer software in place and you have absolute control over how many people were there. As a further control, even though there is an agreement with the neighbor for parking, he has
Yeah.
additional technology and the ability to control how many people are there. Because he's in it, borders on a residential neighborhood. So I
Correct.
think,
Yeah, our group classes right now upstairs are capped at 20. We generally don't hit that cap. But even at that, if we had 20 in class, call it 2 trainers, usually probably 1, and a front desk, that's 23 people. Our parking lot has 41 spaces, so parking itself is never an issue with not having enough. So there really probably won't even be overflow to the diner if we're that busy, because we're not going to get another 20 people.
and it certainly wouldn't be
one-on-one.
overflow into the residential street that borders.
Oh, no, gotcha.
Um,
We have one of the members 2 houses down, or one of the residents 2 houses down is a member, and I think he wrote a letter in favor of it.
Okay, I have a question too, but I'm going to ask you.
I'm good.
You're good, you're good? In this lower level, how many, what do you call them, athletes do you have down here one time? They're not
That's
athletes?
generous. I don't think I'm here.
I'm not there, so trust me.
That's what he means.
How many would be down there?
You have 2 gyms, right? Is there 2 guys in each gym and a trainer, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, at most, I'd probably say then 6 people at most.
So it's 2 in each
2
gym plus a trainer?
trainers, yeah, and then
Okay.
2 people.
Okay. Jim?
I don't want to accuse you of anything. But let me ask Jeremy. Was there a question one time about people doing things outside in the back of the building?
You may
Was
recall.
that the former?
You may recall that
Turn that
during the
light to-
public hearing, when Bill was looking to establish this space, there was concern from some of the residential neighbors about people who might go running either before or after their class. And the commission at the time said, look, it's a public street. It's very difficult for us to limit or restrict people from running up and down a public street. And certainly, one of the issues the commission talked about was making sure the doors were closed such that if there is any noise from the gym, that the door, because there's doors on the front side, that the doors would be closed to minimize the potential for impacting the.
Yeah, we're not allowed to do outside training
Correct.
other than running. I'm assuming they don't want similar to Vibe or whatever's over there with like the trailer outside and
They're flipping tires.
tires and stuff like that
Jen
outside. So
does
we're
that.
not allowed to do any of that. It's expensive there. It's kind of cheaper. But we are allowed to run and stuff.
You can run wherever you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I missing anything? Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this application? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close.
So move.
Second.
We have George, all in favor? Thank you for your time.
Thank you
You're
very
getting an answer in a couple days, weeks. Next.
Continuation of public hearing regarding landfilling, excavation, and regrading application number 463, Patricia Leger, is that right? Sorry. 10 Spring Grove Street, proposal to regrade the property in association with the expansion of an existing rain garden and construction of 2 new retaining walls on the property and to perform related site development activities. The .52 acre subject property is located on the east side of Spring Grove Street, approximately 170 feet south of its intersection with Camp Avenue, and is shown on the assessor's map number 8, lots 115, 116, 91, in the R1/3 zone.
Okay, this is a house on a private street. It's not really, it's a dead end. There's another street that's on the assessor's map or the abutters map, which really doesn't exist, which is Ridgeview Avenue. The house, I think, is kind of sort of under construction. There's no front stairs to the stoop.
This one? No,
Right.
it hasn't been that way as far as I know. No,
That front stairs.
basically what happened was, you could see there's rocks in the front yard and some other things. But when we mentioned to the applicant that it appears this needs a regrading permit, that they put everything on hold and pulled together the application for the commission.
Okay. Sir, gentlemen, who's going to introduce the application?
Sure. My name is, good evening, my name is Chris DeAngelis, professional engineer with the Basis DeAngelis. Ms. Patricia Leger is the property owner. The project involves no improvements to the house. It's an existing structure. It's simply an effort by the property owner to fix up the steep slope in the back of her yard, which receives a lot of runoff from the properties above it. A couple of years ago, she built one wall, which is kind of shown here in a shaded area, to try to stem the erosion, level out the wall level out the slope by terracing it a bit. That was somewhat helpful, and now she is going forward with a further plan, hopefully tonight, which I've highlighted in yellow as 2 walls, an upper wall and a lower wall. The lower wall is more of a landscape wall with boulders. It's decorative. It looks nice. It has a staircase that's built into it, which will allow her to maintain the plantings and whatnot. But basically, it's no other site improvements, no impervious area, no expansion of the property. It's simply an effort on her part to improve the property. unfortunately exceeds the amount of fill allowed in your regulations, so we have to fill out the grading and filling permit. The property has some wetlands that were flagged along the south side of it. That's really a result of the rainwater that's been coming off the hillside. These are not wetlands in any way that would be easily identified as wetlands just from the water that's accumulated there over time. We did receive a wetlands permit. I have a copy of that. We received that in August of this year. It should be part of the application, but if it's not, I
Good, as we have it.
hand it in tonight. So really, this is a very small landscaping project, which slightly exceeds your regulations, and that's why we're here tonight. And I believe we have a couple of neighbors who would speak in support of the application. If you have any other questions for the owner of why this is necessary, she can give you the history of flooding at the site and why she's going forward with this project.
I just need to get clarity on what's going into what's existing. All right, so the junipers that are there, those junipers that are up there are half on your property. I'm looking at LP1.
Correct, so that's the planting plan that was
Right,
put
that's your
together
yellow.
by Environmental Land Solutions, correct.
So half the junipers are on your neighbor's property, half the junipers are on our property, right?
Yes.
Kind of, sort of?
Yes.
Okay.
My neighbor's right there, yes.
Okay. Then the existing stone wall, which is engineered, is that the one that's already there? The one in yellow? No, the one, yeah.
The yellow is proposed, and the existing is the stone wall here. That's the one you're referring to. That was put in 2016.
Okay. And at that end of it, there's a bunch of other, that looks like an old wishing well or something like that that's there?
So there was a rain garden that was put in an attempt to try to capture some of the water that was coming off from this private street to the east.
Is that where the Home Depot, spackling buckets are? Or
Yes,
is it-
that's the, yes.
Okay, why don't you come up and just put it in, just state your name.
Hi, my name is Patricia Leger, owner of 10 Spring Grove Street, Darien, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Is this
Okay,
one?
so we're putting in a new wall, which is yellow.
Yes.
Which is gonna be above the existing
That's
wall.
concrete, that top, that long one, the whole length is a concrete block wall. And then this is gonna be a hole in the wall, and going around the trees, and then a staircase going up, and then a leveled up, like a terrace, a level surface with grass
Okay,
and plantings.
and so the other wall that's existing, that's staying?
That's a bold
stone.
wall. Mhm.
That's like a rubble rock wall, kind of, sort of?
Yep.
Correct.
That's bold.
Okay, and then the rain garden is on the bottom corner, the brand new one, is it?
Yeah, but
That's-
it's gonna be, like, it will look like an identical one, the one that's existing with the Home Depot buckets. On the left of that will be capturing the rest of the water that comes from the well.
Okay.
And also there's a little ledge thing here that leaks water also. There's a ledge in the actual whole hill, so water leaks out, so I'm trying to capture the water.
Okay.
I think what you're referring to is.
That's the brand new one.
That would be a
That's-
new one at the front of the property.
Now, are these two piped together to connect, or no?
Yes.
Correct, they are. And we do show that piping on the drawing of C1.
C1 is existing 6-inch PVC under drains?
Correct.
Okay. Are these walls, how high are these walls? Are they engineered? It says new walls stepped by others?
They are engineered, although they're only 3 to 4 feet high. By code, if it's 3 feet or less, it doesn't have to be engineered. And I think we're trying to keep them at 3. If they exceed 3, it's no more than 4.
Right, on
Which was the old
C1 it
code.
talks-
It was 4, they lowered it to 3, but as an engineer, I can certify that the walls would be structurally sound.
Because that's a pretty steep slope coming
It
up
is,
top.
yeah.
So you're holding back a lot. You're not taking anything away, right?
Right. We provided a cross-section to show that the walls, they're generally just there to kind of terrace it. It's
Right.
not going to result in a flat, piece of land. It's generally just going to step the land in small increments rather than one steep slope. And the goal is to try to really stem the water by capturing it behind the wall get it into some pervious stone, into a pipe, and then just move it away so that it doesn't end up at the rear of the house, which is happening today and seeping in through the foundation and whatnot.
Now, the area between the existing stone wall and the new front stone wall,
Correct.
that's level, right?
That's a level area, and that holds a lot of water, and that's
Right.
really the the problem that she's having is that water's congregating back there, leading to mold, leading to deterioration of the foundation, water's getting into the basement.
Okay.
So this is a creative effort that will look nice and get the water away. Basically just send it down where it's going anyways, just around the side of the house instead of.
So last question for me, all the rocks that are piled up to the left of the house, where are they going?
Right here. They'll all be in here and around there, and right, so that's them, gonna be in there.
Yeah, so
The
that's
new
her
boulder.
stockpile.
That's my stockpile.
For building the wall, that's the material for the new wall. She had to purchase those rocks.
Okay. So the wall's not gonna look like the code, it's gonna have those things behind it.
Correct, it's gonna be a nice looking wall. The
Okay.
goal is to also, improve the aesthetics of the property as
Got it.
well as.
Okay.
all the
You guys good?
That's our presentation.
Commissioners? Okay, would anybody to the audience like to speak to this application?
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Relier. Would you like me to spell that?
I would.
R-E-L.
R-E-B-C-C-A.
Oh,
Relier is R-E-L-Y-E-A. And I'm the owner of this property here at the top of the very steep slope.
The name's on the survey.
And I'm very happy with my neighbor's plans and hope she can proceed as soon as possible. It's a huge benefit to me personally, and my opinion is that it also benefits the neighbors who are even downhill from her.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and staying so late.
Anybody else want to speak to this application? Looks pretty straightforward to me. Anything we're missing, Chairman? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Marie McCall, and I'm a neighbor also on Spring Grove and Camp Avenue. And we would love to have this project finished as soon as possible, because we're all suffering from the water that comes off the hill.
Thank you for staying late and for showing up for your neighbor.
Great. May I say anything, Jeremy?
No other issues.
Okay, entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
All those in favor? Thank you. You'll hear from us in a
Thank
couple
you.
of weeks. You're welcome.
Continuation of public hearing regarding landfilling, excavation, and regrading application number 468, Lisa Austin Piersol, 431 Hoyt Street. Proposal to regrade the property in association with the construction in addition to an existing residence and construction of an expanded and reconfigured driveway and retaining walls and to perform related site development activities. This 0.63 acre subject property is located on the southeast side of Hoyt Street, approximately 0.25 miles north of its intersection with Woodway Road, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 3 as lot 133 in the R1/2 zone.
Okay, this is a house across the street from Woodway Club that has a circular driveway today. Looks like you're adding to the left of the house.
That's correct.
And doing a quick addition, moving some site plan and taking out that hill to the left of the house?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just for the record, the applicant's son is one of my lacrosse players.
Oh, congratulations. Sir.
Thank you. And he's very good at what he does. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to do.
My name is Femi. I am the president of Starlight Construction. I'm also a Darien resident.
Could you spell your name, please?
F-E-M-I.
Thank you.
Last name O-L-O-W-O-S-O-Y-O.
Thank you.
And my clients are David and Lisa Piersol. Lisa couldn't make it tonight because she's home with the kids. And David is right here. So what we're proposing to do is excavate to remove a little bit of material from the property in order to clear ground for the proposed 3-car garage, and also make the property a little bit more user-friendly. It's a very challenging property. It's got the railroad in the back, the country club across the street in the front, and a very busy Hoyt Street going between them. So what we've done is create a very good solution to the problem of the water that will be created by the development, as well as remove the existing problem from the property. Right now, you have runoff going from our property to the next neighbor at 437. So of course, they're very happy that we're going to be removing that hill.
The water's going up Hoyt Street, not down Hoyt Street?
It's going up. It's going up to. I mean, it's the peak of the hill is on our property, about 15 feet in.
Right.
So that section of the land is draining water back onto. It's draining it to 437.
Okay.
So by removing that hill, we'll be diverting that water from our property back to our property.
Is there any water retention on the property as it stands right now?
No,
Nothing.
there's none.
There's nothing.
And that's one of the benefits of this project is we're creating a baffle Coltech system that's going to be retaining all the water.
And that's all underneath the driveway?
That's correct.
Okay, from the plans, I had a little bit of a question on how high this wall was. We got two sets of plans, I think one would predates the next one.
Right, the plan you're looking at is in the bottom right corner, should say revised October 16th.
Great.
We've been working with Femi and the team in terms of revising it such that the October 16th plans show walls, which are walls in terms of what they're cutting, at the end of the driveway, a max of 7 feet high.
Great.
So this has been revised to be a little, the walls are much smaller than originally proposed. If you notice that there's existing walls and proposed walls, it's a very small usable backyard between the house and that back retaining wall. And by putting in a new addition, they're going to have a side-facing 3-car garage. There'll be a paved area to allow you to get in and out of the garage. Most of that paved area next to the garage will have a 7-foot wall around it holding back the slope. And that's the area they're cutting away as part of this permit.
So, Jess, if you can just show us on the plan what he's talking about, I know where this 7-foot wall is. Just use your finger or use your pointer.
That'll be right here.
Right, and it goes north towards Hoyt Street, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then the wall along the back property line, holding back the railroad track hill, that is 6 feet high? Is that right?
It varies in height as you go south on Hoyt Street. So it tapers down to the south.
Because I didn't see on your height where it says how high that wall is.
6 to 7 feet.
Where is it, Taylor?
Well, it has the bottom wall and top wall.
Yeah, where
So
it
the
says
bottom is
10.4, 110.07, and 116.
Yes.
The top of wall is essentially at grade.
Right.
It's holding back the slope, and then drops down, what is it, 4 feet?
4 at one point, going up to a little more than 6 at another. So that whole back area between the edge of the Metro North property and that proposed wall is now wooded, very sloped. It's a 26-foot difference. So that whole area of the backyard is basically unusable.
Great. Okay.
So this is actually unusual in that it's a cut project, not a fill project. Before the meeting, Femi explained that they're going to take out about 40 to 45 cubic yards, about 2 or 3 truckloads of that knoll, that hill, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Let's talk about the circular driveway real quick. That is, I guess, town policy is to be 50 feet between the two.
Right, Femi and I
This is
spoke.
grandfathered, but it's not grandfathered?
Well, to separate the curb cuts more, they would need a state DOT approval. And Fred and I looked at this question when we visited the site. They might need another regrading permit because of the slope you can see Hoyt Street is at elevation 104, and the driveway goes, the top of the driveway is 110. We talked a little bit before the meeting about how does the existing driveway work, how does it function, even though it might not meet current standards. They said it works out well. The new driveway will give them a little more maneuverability on site. It's really not a location someone would back into Hoyt Street. It would be very difficult.
Right.
So that may be a future project for them, but it's not, can't really be done under this application.
Yeah, what are you doing with the red, isn't there a red bush in between the two curb cuts now?
Yes.
What are you doing with that?
We're gonna relocate that.
So that bush is going away because that affects sight lines.
That's correct.
Okay. So this thing from Darien Astified says if they're changing the proposed driveway, an opportunity to correct inconsistent with either above safety changes, it would then further is not grandfathered. So they're not doing enough to the driveway to get them in.
They're not doing anything at the driveway where it enters the road. They're just digging up, I'll call it, that area to install a new drainage system, and then they're cutting away this knoll, but they're not changing the curb cuts at the street entrance.
So they're not going to trigger anything that makes it one of the driveways anyway.
That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
And we discussed the driveway issue with the state. They're okay with it the way it is, as long as we're not changing it.
Right. It's our Department of Public Works policy. I don't think it's the state. It's Darien DPW. But my concern was the bush in the middle.
Actually, the state has the state no longer grants a double cut on the state road, but because this one is grandfathered in, they're leaving it alone.
Okay. We want to figure that. Jim, any questions?
No.
This one, George?
Just on that driveway, is it going to be repaved?
Yes, sir.
Has to be done with asphalt?
Yes, sir.
And that's not going to trigger anything, right, John?
Correct.
Okay. You good? You done?
Good. I don't know if Bob wants to. Bob is the engineer.
Do you have any other questions?
Just at the end of the day, you're going to certify these walls. They're 7 feet high and 6 feet high. They're pretty big walls. So
Yeah, well, we're going to do plans for that.
Could you introduce yourself for the record?
It's Robert Smarzlak, Sound Engineers.
Can you give us spell your last name?
ZMARZLAK.
Thank you.
do we need cut sheets for the walls, Jeremy? Detail sheets?
Those will be part of the zoning and building permit application. When they've already submitted the permit, that permit's in our office. So if the commission were to approve this regrading, that we need supplemental revised plans to match what the commission's reviewing tonight, certification from Bob, and that package would be sent to the building department.
Okay, that's fine. So we don't need the.
Won't need them yet, but if the commission were to approve this, Bob would submit that. We'd make sure we'd have 3 of the updated plans and get that over to building.
Okay, this is the bush you're taking out, right? You're moving this in?
That's correct.
Okay.
What is the bush? Which one?
This thing.
Oh, okay.
We tried to turn 2 driveways. Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this application? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close.
Move to close.
Move. Second?
Second.
There you go. All in favor? Thank you.
Continuation of public hearing regarding landfilling, excavation, and regrading application number 467, Scott and Kristen Peloso, 10 Homewood Lane. Peloso to regrade areas of the property in association with construction of a new driveway more than 25 feet from the residence now under construction to perform related site development activities. 1.25 acre subject property is located on the east side of Homewood Lane, approximately 1,000 feet north of its intersection with Cross Road, as shown in Assessor's Map number 67 on lot 30C and in R1 zone.
Jen's gonna go home to her babysitter.
Yowza.
So, this to me seems like a really simple application. I honestly asked Gary why you guys are here. But it's a house that's under construction, right?
Right, the house was approved by our department. Brian from the engineer's office has shown in yellow the areas which are more than 25 feet away from the house or within 15 feet of the property line in which they're proposing to change the grade more than 6 inches. So we were able to approve the house and a simple driveway. But Dave Keating, the zoning officer, said if you want to regrade in those two areas, you need P&Z approval. So this will allow them to put in a circular driveway and do some regrading right near that northern property line, which would allow back out of the side-facing garage, and that's why they're here.
So correct if I'm wrong, the existing driveway that was approved by your guys' office when they built the house is just a straight shot to the side of the yard.
I believe so.
And now we're doing the circular, which brings you up to the front door,
Correct?
which is the highlighted part.
Correct.
Okay, great. Please, sir, introduce yourself and tell us what.
Good evening, Brian Asteriak. Would you like me to spell that? Nesteriak.
Thank you.
I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor with B&B Engineering. I can't really add much more. Like it was discussed, this part of the driveway right here, the actual location was never changed from the original design plan to now. This area was added just to add a little circular turnaround in the front. This area was changed in grade, but it wasn't changed in location. In order to comply with the zoning regulations, this just had to be very steep to get back down to the property line.
Has to be steep?
Well, it's steeper than what would be what is wanted for outside of a driveway.
Okay.
So instead, we're going to do a 2-foot berm from the property up to the driveway. It's not a very significant change, but it needed to be steeper in order to comply with the regulations and not create within 15 feet of the property line.
So it's area graded within 15 feet of property, special permit required. Okay, got it. And it's the area that's in dotted, right?
The dotted area.
Brian has shown the
At
two
both
areas.
locations.
The front circle and the area just north of the side-facing garage.
Okay, great. Any questions, Jen? Jennifer, George, Karen? No. Anybody else that can speak to this application?
Yes, please.
Sure.
My name is Todd Meck, M-E-C-K, simplest one of the evening.
Thank you.
I own 11 Homewood Lane, and just to put everyone at ease, I have no issues with what's proposed or with the work that's been done. In fact, we're very pleased with the way we've been kept informed by the builders of 10 Homewood Lane. 11 Homewood is on the left side of the cul-de-sac, and 2 new residences are being built on the right side, 10 and 12. And so I have 2 questions. One is, can we get a sense of the approximate timing of the excavation work? And then the second question has to do with there's an existing driveway that ran into the Carey estate.
Could you point to where your house is? It's just in general. You're
Across the
not-
street?
The cul-de-sac is there, yeah. Okay. So you the house with the shared driveway that goes into lot 1?
That is I.
Okay, got it. We've seen you before.
I take exception to the use of the word shared. It's not a shared driveway.
I understand.
Part of our driveway is on their property. On the property of number 12, not number 10.
Great.
So, again, and that's really because number 12 has to make some decisions about their driveway, that I'm asking about timing of this.
Okay.
And especially about timing of the removal of the old driveway, which lies partly at least on 10, because that will have a significant effect on number 12.
The timing of the removal of driveway at 12 or at 10?
There's a driveway that existed on the estate property, still exists.
Right.
And it
That
is
gets
used
up
by
to
both 10 and 12 for access to by their building teams.
Okay, because when I was here today, I told the driveway for 10 goes to 10.
That's the stone driveway.
Correct.
There's a paved driveway just to the left of that.
Okay.
That is used to get to 12 and also used by 10 on their portion of the driveway. So when that goes away, I don't know how people are going to have access to number 12. And I would assume that number 10 will say, we don't want this old driveway in our front yard any longer. So I'm not objecting, I'm just trying to figure out when that might happen.
Okay, I didn't see the driveway that goes across 10 into 12. But,
Yeah, that's what they ask. Okay.
Yeah.
This is your driveway, right?
Yeah, this is our driveway.
And this is
and
the
this
estate
old
driveway.
Wait, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're better. Here's the cul-de-sac right here.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the proposed driveway, obviously.
Yep.
This is Mr. Meck, I think.
Yep.
Mr. Meck's driveway right here.
Okay.
And then this is the original estate driveway, which is being used primarily, as far as I know, to access this property back here, which is under construction.
Right.
Is that, and that's, well,
And this is the original driveway, which is over this property, number 10, but their access actually comes down from here.
So let's get us.
No, hold on. So, Mr. Mack, you're asking if that driveway is gonna go away?
Well, I'm sure it will.
We're asking
We'll
that.
find out.
I'm sorry?
Well, we'll find out in a second.
He was
Okay,
asking
just to
timing.
further explain, this is the back lot, number 12.
Yep.
So that, the access way for it is actually not the old driveway. It's part of our driveway and then another approximately 20 feet. So this driveway will disappear because it's, the owners from number 10 have been very kind to him for allowing them to use it today. I just don't know when.
Okay, let's ask the applicant first, and we'll try to Jeremy. Sir, can you tell me if that driveway that exists today, that, I saw it sitting there, but is that thing going away? Is it staying?
It's going away eventually. I don't know what the intentions of the owner and the builder are. I think they've allowed 10 Homewood to continue to use it.
12
but-
Homewood.
It's already 10.
12 Homewood to use it. But it's clearly on this property, so it's going to have to get moved in the next, I would say, 6 months, because that's probably about when this home is going to be complete.
So in your plans, the driveway that's there today, that's quote unquote temporary or construction, you think it's going away?
Yeah.
6 months.
Who owns 12?
Somebody.
I don't know.
Who it is?
A person, it was a 4-lot subdivision approved by the commission. I believe the people's names are the Galligans, bought the house, and in the process of building the house at number 12.
If the plan of subdivision certainly must have had
It did.
a driveway,
It-
which would answer.
It did, and I'm assuming that the zoning plan for the construction of the new house had,
Yes.
but I just don't believe that they've built it yet,
They have not.
because
Yeah, it's not-
they're just utilizing the old driveway, and I assume these owners and the builder, who I
What was
work
Mr.
for.
Mack's question, exists in black and white someplace.
It does, I'm sure it exists in the file for 12 Homewood.
Yes, it's just not your problem. Okay.
I just don't have a good answer. I think it's just been a courtesy between the two builders and owners to just allow us to continue for the foreseeable future, but the home is probably gonna be done in the spring, so I assume it's gonna be wrapped up by then.
In your
10.
guesstimation, your house is gonna be done this spring, the asphalt plant's closed pretty soon? If they're gonna close already?
Right.
So you think
So
this,
late spring.
the new driveway on 10, you think it's gonna go in when, next spring?
Well, the driveway's already roughed in.
Right, that's.
The drainage is already installed, and it was originally designed for this, so they already installed the drainage in hopes that this would be approved. So it's just some rough grading probably this year, and then some fine grading in the early to mid-spring, depending on when the weather allows for it, and then a finish late spring, early summer.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I hope I answered the question.
I don't have
as best I could.
So if I can
Sir,
have
did that
one
answer your
follow-up.
question? The answer is that the asphalt plant's closed like November 1st.
Right.
Right, so they're not putting the asphalt that they can put down the, what do you call the undergrading?
Subgrade?
Yeah, what do you call, it's got a name to it, we talked about that today.
The aggregate?
Yeah.
The
No,
subbase?
Back what I do,
no,
that is
something.
actually.
So that can go in now, the top grade's not gonna go until the spring. So I think your question was timing of when the driveway goes in, or when it's gonna be.
When the old driveway comes out. And I
When the
I
old
guess I
driveway
was
comes out.
assuming, and I don't know anything, but I was assuming it would have to come out while the heavy equipment is there. And they're not gonna wanna bring back heavy equipment to, once they've graded everything and repaired the lawn and all of that, and put in the asphalt.
Yeah, I don't know when the driveway for 12 is going in, and I don't think this
He
gentleman.
wants to know when to remove.
6 months.
Yeah, if the answer's 6 months, I'm fine with that. I was just wondering why the Pelosi's would allow them to do that. But anyway.
Well, the reason that I think it is just cleaner.
Yeah.
Rather than rip it out and have more potential of mud, I think everybody probably agreed that let's just keep it there as long as we can and then take it out when we have to. But I don't know the exact story, so I'm just hypothesizing.
That's okay, we're here to approve, or you're here to get your thing approved. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll work on it.
Sorry it took so long.
Thank you. Chairman, miss anything?
Nothing to add.
All set? Anybody, commissioners?
No.
Entertain a motion to close? We have a second? All's in favor? Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
Continuation of public hearing regarding landfill lien regrading application 290A, John Nelson, 51 Arrowhead Way. Proposal to regrade the southern portion of the property, install new stormwater management, and to perform related site development activities. The subject property is located on the southeast side of Arrowhead Way at its intersection with Winding Lane. It is shown as Assessor's Map number 69 as lot number 17 in the R1 zone.
Okay, this is a house, I think I might have been on the commission when it got approved in 2013. I don't really remember.
There was a regrading approval in 2013.
Great. Yeah, I think that. So now you have that side lawn, and you're making it a little bit bigger and better?
Well, certainly better. I'm not enlarging it. My name is Keith, K-E-I-T-H-S-I-M-P-S-O-N.
Thank you.
Licensed landscape architect in Connecticut. Thank you very much. Sorry to keep you up late. I apologize. May I proceed with the application?
Of course you can. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. With the permission of this commission, back in 1913, I regraded the entire back of this property. It's extremely steep, very, very steep indeed. So I put in layers of boulders all on that slope, stabilized the slope, built all these steps up to here, and then built 2 terraces, and it really came out very well. It's all planted, it's all stable. But at the bottom of this slope, there's an area of lawn here which is about 25 feet wide here, about 35 feet wide there, and about 60 feet long. It's the only area of lawn on the property which is sort of reasonably flat at all. And what happened is that after building all of this and all the construction activity took place from below that, the lawn settled somewhat differentially. So what happens now is that when water comes down off this slope, it gets onto that lawn area and tends to do some ponding, tends to rot out the grass, and it's sort of been very difficult for us to get a decent standard of grass established here, and the family would really like to use it just for normal recreational purposes. But when there's a very heavy storm, water comes down and it flows over the edge of here and onto the neighboring property below. Doug DeVesta, who's an engineer that I work with very frequently, has actually done work to help the people who are down below there to try to deal with some of the drainage problems that they've experienced. So I've done a lot of playing fields and a lot of school projects and so on, so I know that I really need like a 2% pitch on lawn for it to be able to drain properly and to function well, and also if I can under-drain it, it works even better. So what I'm suggesting with this, as it right now is almost flat or pitches slightly towards the neighbor, is to cut on the inside, on the owner's side, and raise slightly on the outside, and basically reverse pitch the slope, so that when the water lands on here, it can flow back into the bottom of the slope, and so that this area can absorb it. I'm suggesting putting in a deep curtain drain with an 8-inch pipe at the bottom of it, which creates a good amount of volume, so that water coming down here can basically pitch off this lawn in this direction and go down into the ground, and it basically protects this neighbor from the sheet flows which they experience now, and I think it puts it down into the groundwater. Dr. Vester took a look at it for me because he often does that, and he just suggested that I raise the bottom of the curtain drain about a foot, which I agree with, just so that it doesn't pick up any groundwater. I agree with that. That's sort of sensible.
Now the curtain drain's where? What do you call the curtain drain?
A curtain drain?
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4 these first ones.
Right, those are the basins, right?
The top right-hand corner, there's a section for the curtain drain. So it has a lot of gravel.
Can you point to it on there?
It's right along here, like that.
Okay, got it.
The water would pitch back into that.
So
and then if you get chunky gravel in there, trap rock type gravel, there's a lot of volume in there, and the water basically goes into the ground, which I really think is a sort of form of retention, and I think it's a responsible way to. It's just an incidental drainage exercise, but I believe that It helps the neighbor, and it helps us, and I think we'll get a better standard lawn out of it. And it's not a very big area.
So now the lawn's it's gonna pitch 2 degrees towards the house,
Right.
go into those 4 curtain drains, and then come back out of the curtain drains to the perforated pipes, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So it's going north and coming back south.
Yeah, the pipe, the lawn, instead of doing that, will do that. It's back into the slope.
Yep.
Onto their own property.
Okay.
I think they'll keep the water on their own property, and put it in the ground, and protect the neighbor.
Now those I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pipes.
Right.
Those have caps on the end, or are they open on the end?
They're underground, and so they're capped on the end, and then they don't flow towards the neighbor, they flow back towards their own property, into the owner's own property.
So those flow back also?
Yes,
those pipes are
the underdrains, correct, the underdrains flow back into that pipe also. So that should keep the lawn drier quicker by allowing flow to go back into the curtain drain.
Okay, and then, so the water goes into the curtain drain, which goes east and west, and then it goes into the ground? So it comes out of the pipes on the...
It doesn't come out of the pipe. It's actually, the 8-inch pipe doesn't flow out anywhere. It's capped at both ends. But there's, at the very end there, at the top of the curtain drain, there's a little 6-inch pipe, so that in the event that the entire curtain drain filled up, which I think is unlikely, there'd be a small 6-inch pipe coming out of the top of it, which is about the size that we get from a downspout, you know. So the change in flow of water to the neighbor is drastically reduced. And also that 6-inch pipe is down in the corner, which is well away from the main area of this property, which the house and the pool and everything else are further along here. So I did meet with the neighbor, explained the whole thing to them. He was very comfortable with it, and he was really rather appreciative because they have experienced some drainage difficulties down on their property.
Okay.
So trying to make it a better situation for them as well as the owner.
Okay. Jeremy, can you just give us a little bit of answer the back and forth between Darren and Doug DeVesta and all that? Did all of Darren's questions get answered by Doug? Some are noted, some are agreed, some are...
Yeah, it was sort of a mixed bag, but I think Keith explains it well here. I don't know that we were aware of the situation that the drainage pipes pitched back towards the toe of the slope.
Right.
So that seems to be to be, as Keith mentioned, a benefit to the adjoining property owner to the south. So I think that's good.
That's the same thing I was thinking. They pitch the other way, then they're going out to the neighbor's property.
We had also asked Keith, you put the elevations on the plan. And
actually, they were on, but they were not at the particular point of the catch basin. There's a typical one. There's an elevation on. I did add them to additional ones, so if you want them with the additional elevations on, I have one here.
Sure, yeah, if you could just submit that for the record,
Sure.
that would be great.
Yeah, but there's an elevation shown on the plans, but it just says typical.
Yeah.
Which is 21. But it shows a 2% pitch back from the top of the boulders on the edge back to, it's only 1 foot change in grade because it's only 50 feet of distance, so that's 2%.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the revised plan. What's the date on this, Keith?
I'm sorry, what?
The date on this plan?
Oh, yeah. The date on this one. I'm trying to read it, and in fact, I'm afraid I'm having trouble reading it.
Part 601?
This plan, Keith, this is a revised version of that plan. And Keith put the revision date right here.
Can someone read it? Jeremy?
This says September 16th.
Oh, is there a revision that I can't, this is so tiny I can't read, I'm sorry.
So the date of the plan is September 17th.
A full size of this?
Yeah, we can. I'll definitely get you a full size of this. And I'll get this revision date clearly so you can read it.
It's October 28th.
Oh, it does say October.
No, this is
It does say October 28th.
Oh, this is 1028.
Okay, so,
I mean.
I'll still get you a big one as well. I'm sorry that my glasses aren't nearly as good as yours.
Okay, just to add 2 points, and then I think we're good to go. Darren asked to find his numbers 13 and 14. Are those okay?
Applicant states that the adjacent neighbors will benefit.
That's 14, right?
These are Darren's original comments to the applicant. Applicant states that the adjacent neighbors will benefit. This is likely not true by creating point discharge onto that property. He's referring to that 6-inch drainage pipe that.
And then the agreed, is that from Darren or is that from Doug Levesta?
That is from Darren. So
Who's the
so
agreed from?
Darren is basically continuing to say that it will continue to create a point discharge onto the property south of this site. But based on the testimony that Keith is putting into the record now, based on the pitch of the other pipes, it's likely that you're only going to have drainage coming out of that pipe in the event that the drainage system tops out.
Right.
And it's going to be a very minimal amount of drainage coming out there in comparison to the sheet flow that is now coming down on that and then flowing onto the neighbor's yard.
Right,
So-
that's at the base of the hill.
Correct. So this,
What about
this
13?
appears to be an improvement over the
13 you're okay
existing
with?
situation. And then the last comment, if neighbors are willing to allow work on the property.
No, it was 13.
Mm,
I think it's just at 14.
The inland wetlands, is that what you're referring to? I don't have.
But everything here.
Julie's storm comment stands. Yeah, that's okay.
Yep, it's,
What does it say?
As long as he's
inland
fine.
wetlands shown on adjacent properties. Protection of upland area between point discharge should be created. Riprap velocity dissipator channel could be used.
That's a different one.
But everything is okay though.
Is that 13?
Correct.
You're right. So we're down to 10?
Yep.
Any question from anybody?
Yeah.
You guys good?
No issues.
Entertain a motion to close?
Motion closed.
Second. All those in favor? Here you go, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good answer.
We really appreciate it. Sorry to keep you up. I'll give you a big copy.
General meetings, we're not doing a deliberation, no other business can be considered. So general meeting, interim motion to close the meeting.
Motion closed.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned.
You're sure now?
Yes.
Thank you, Bonnie.
11